In Naruto, the traveling frog brought back the brilliant fruit. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. I suggest you trust me. After saying this, it was obvious that the Three Tails was directly angered. No one has ever dared to say such words to me, not even the Nine Tails. You will pay the price for underestimating the human-tailed beasts. The Three Tails suddenly planned to burst out his own power here, to break free from Takashi's restraints, but when his body expanded to a certain extent, he suddenly crashed into the surrounding system walls, and a powerful resistance force emerged. It made it impossible for his body to expand. He saw the hateful obstacles around him, and used his three huge tails to hit them, but the attack could not even create a wave. Takashi looked at his constant struggle and said helplessly, I suggest you believe me, you can't break free of this space no matter what. I'm different from ordinary Jinchuriki. This is just my little trick, but if you don't listen, I don't mind letting you suffer more. Sanwei, who had already fallen into a violent state, naturally would not listen to these words of advice, but just attacked violently. But the result was predictable. No matter how he attacked, he could not break through the obstacles, but would make a mess of himself. More than half an hour later, he finally calmed down. He looked at Takashi breathlessly. You bastard, who are you? Let me out. Takashi and the phantom evil spirit just watched Sanwei's constant struggle in boredom, without any fluctuations in their hearts, and even wanted to play 2 games of Mahjong. Finally, looking at Sanwei, who had struggled to the point of having no strength left, he yawned and said, Old third, you take a rest first. I'll come to see you tomorrow, and try to break the ban here, as soon as possible. Then Takashi left in the midst of anger with Sanwei's eyes blazing. The next day, he arrived here on time again, and after yesterday's fight, it was obvious that he had become much more well behaved. Takashi asked with a strange smile on his face, Old third, why don't you struggle? What's wrong with you? You have to stand up. Sanwei didn't want to pay attention to him now, because he knew that there was no hope of breaking through here. Takashi was not afraid of this big guy at all, because if he wanted to use his power, it was useless to just imprison him here. Communication and trust must be established in order to gain power. However, he also knew that this could not be accomplished overnight, so he was not in a hurry. You can choose to coexist peacefully with me, or even cooperate with me. Of course, you can also choose to refuse. After all, a human's lifespan of several decades is just a blink of an eye for you. Sanwei raised his huge eyelids, and then closed them again, pretending to sleep and ignoring him. Then he told the illusion evil spirit that the two of them should get along well, but his tone was a little strange. He wanted to see which of the two guys would be better. After helping him to regain his spirit and return to reality, he found that Yakumo was actually looking at him with his eyes wide open. He didn't know when this little girl came over, because Yakumo had been pestering Takashi before, so he simply gave her a key to his house and told him to come whenever he wanted. Anyway, his basement had been sealed for a long time. He flicked her head. Little girl, why didn't you tell me? Sneaking around, without even making a sound. Yakumo pouted unhappily. Are you hiding some secret from me? You seemed to be asleep just now, and you didn't wake up, no matter how I called you. This is not like your state at all. Everyone says that you are famous for being powerful. How could you not even hear my footsteps? How could a ninja be so careless? Takashi had a headache. Why is it that sometimes the intuition of a woman is so accurate, and this accuracy has nothing to do with strength? Not wanting to continue discussing this topic, he said, why do you come to see your elder brother for no reason? Ever since he recognized Yakumo as his sister, he has regarded himself as the elder brother, but he was not recognized as the elder brother for nothing, and he usually has to coax this immature girl more, but fortunately she is easier to coax. However, who knew that what Yakumo said actually scared Takashi? I accidentally heard a mission at the door of the Hokage room. There is a family called Tsuchigumo. Have you heard of it? I heard that someone wants to rob their clan's secret technique. Not only that, but also wants to capture the inheritor of their clan. That person is also a girl, and she is as lonely and helpless as me. She is so pitiful. She has asked Konoha for help, which means her life is in danger at any time. Can you go and help her? You are so powerful, you can definitely protect her. Takashi rolled his eyes. Are you kidding? There are so many people in need in the world. How can I save them all? Besides, you are so brave. You actually dare to find out the information of the mission. Even teacher Yuhi Kurenai will be angry about this. If I go, doesn't it mean that I asked you to find out the mission? This kind of thing is absolutely not allowed. But Yakumo was relentless after hearing this. Hate it. You are so powerful, why can't you save her? With your strength, saving people should be easy. However, Takashi was unexpectedly serious this time. The ninja world is cruel. After all, our personal strength is limited. If we want to ask more people, we can't rely on completing tasks, but to change the pattern of the ninja world, so that these tragedies will not happen again. Yakumo seemed to understand, and nodded sadly. She was still a child, and she couldn't help feeling sad when she heard that there were people who had the same experience as her. She thought that it would be best if she could help. However, Takashi still sighed helplessly, took Yakumo's hand, and walked out of the door. Looking at her puzzled eyes, he said helplessly, I will take the mission, but this kind of thing will not happen again, and it will never happen again, otherwise, I will be really angry. Yakumo hugged Takashi and pecked him lightly on the face. To be honest, he was very happy that Yakumo had such thoughts. He could mourn for a stranger who had the same tragic fate and even wanted to save him, but his thoughts were too simple after all. When he came to the Hokage room to accept the mission, he found that there were no missions related to the Tsuchigumo clan, which made him frown slightly. It seemed that this matter was not a small problem. His mind was constantly recalling things about the Tsuchigumo clan, and he remembered what was so powerful about this clan. Because this family has been guarding a forbidden technique for generations, which can clear everything around it in an instant, and it is very powerful. It was banned by the third generation of Hokage. At the same time, if their clan has any problems, they can also ask Konoha for help. But to be honest, this so-called forbidden technique is just a low-profile version of Shinra Tensei, but even so, it makes many people salivate. Chapter 77 Departure Early. Takashi knew about this matter. If nothing unexpected happened, he would definitely not be able to receive it, because from the current situation, the third generation did not need to find him for a mission, so if he wanted to proceed, he had to take action in advance. That Tsuchigumo clan was Konoha's ally, so it was relatively easy to find. After returning to pack up, he set off directly at night. No one would suspect that he would leave the village in the middle of the night, because Takashi often carried out night missions. Along the way, he was thinking about what kind of attack that Tsuchigumo clan would suffer. If he remembered correctly, the current heir of the Tsuchigumo clan was a little girl, but from Takashi's perspective, the forbidden technique of their clan was a bit difficult to describe. Because that pitfall number actually had to be used up for 1800 seconds in advance to exert its original power, and if you want to become stronger, you must continue to accumulate power, and the time must be longer. On this basis, you also need a strong body that can withstand this powerful power. It's simply a chicken rib among chicken ribs. Takashi has absolute confidence that he can kill more than 2000 times within this time within 1800 seconds. However, most ninjas do not have this kind of power, which has led to many guys spying on this so-called forbidden technique. Takashi is very fast, and even if he leaves later than them, he can arrive earlier. If it is based on the previous time, this little girl is still very important. Because at that time, the six-tailed Jinchuriki Yugeo completely killed his master because of some misunderstandings, so he was forced to become a rebel ninja. In anger, he directly rebelled against the ninja village and was constantly hunted down by others. This led to the little girl mistakenly thinking that many people came to kill him, causing some misunderstandings. And now Yugeo is still practicing very happily with his master, so the degree of danger of this little girl is not worth mentioning at all, at least for Takashi. I don't know which team was sent this time. Takashi directly covered his face. He did not use his very classic flash skills, but used powerful physical skills such as speed to come to the village. Look around. There are no people, only a house standing here alone, which is also to protect the forbidden technique from being discovered by too many people. But there are pros and cons. Once this situation is discovered, there is not even a helper, which is very passive. At this time, there was only an old man standing at the door, but there was a murderer Sora coming from him. However, his strength was indeed a little weak, barely reaching the level of a Jonin. But even so, it was estimated that his body could not keep up with the use of strength. He did not show up, but hid around, waiting for the attack of others. To be honest, it was a miracle that they had not been killed. After asking for help for so long, he simply found a place on the big tree to rest. As long as they were not from Konoha, no matter how many came, he would kill them all. At that time, he would have an explanation to Yakumo no matter what. Thinking of this little girl, a smile appeared on his face, and then he thought of Hinata. He was very busy during this period, and had not seen her for a long time. Just as he was thinking of this, there were suddenly more than a dozen fast footsteps in the distance, very fast and in neat formation. Takashi raised his eyebrows, and found that things were not simple. Because generally, those who snatch such boring forbidden techniques are not too powerful, because they themselves have no means to curb the strength of others, so they can only use this forbidden technique as their only remaining weapon, and the truly powerful team disdains it. However, judging from the neatness of the other team, it must be very well trained. It is impossible for ordinary small villages or small organizations to appear. At least, there is no such team in a small country like Konoha country. If this level of strength is a large army, it must at least exist in the teams of the 5 major countries. This makes him a little curious. What kind of confidence gave these guys to make them fight for this forbidden technique without any face? Moreover, this is Konoha's allied village. Once the matter is exposed, even the remaining face will be gone. Gyokyo thought about it and couldn't figure it out. This is basically not profitable unless it can be quickly snatched away before the people of Konoha come. Gyokyo is also happy to see what is going on. At most, he can quickly rescue the old man before he is killed. Hide your breath. Then, more than a dozen figures quickly came to the old man. The leader had a fierce look in his eyes. Shield guard, hand over the forbidden technique now. We will leave immediately and will not hurt you. Otherwise, the effect will be different if we find it ourselves. After that, the people in the back all took a fighting stance, ready to fight at any time. The old man named Shield Guard did not choose to surrender. No matter what, he was the only remaining guard and would never fight to the death. Seeing his stubborn appearance, the dozen people also planned to kill him and then look for him. Gyokyo could not wait any longer and flashed in front of the crowd. Looking at the dozen people in front of him, they did not look nervous at all and even said with some ridicule, "It's amazing. More than a dozen people threatened an old man. Let me guess which village you are from. Sand Village? It doesn't look like it. Cloud Village? You don't look like it either. It won't be Mist Village?" As soon as he finished speaking, the head of the leader suddenly shrank. Although the reaction was very small, Gyokyo still saw it. It was indeed them. However, Takashi couldn't understand why he had to do such a boring thing. This was not a shocking ninjutsu. Could it be that their village was going to make some big news? Since Takashi was masked and had not yet used his classic ninjutsu, the other side didn't know where he came from, but anyone who dared to delay their business could not be left behind. The person who turned back quickly made a gesture, intending to kill both of them. Takashi quickly said to the old man behind him, "Old man, you go first. I can hold these people back." He hesitated and didn't know where Takashi came from, but it seemed that he was a friend, not an enemy. Thinking of his own lady, although he felt a little sorry for the man in front of him, he still said resolutely, "Then I'll trouble you." Then he took 3 steps and disappeared from the sight. The leader was so angry, bastard. More than a dozen people rushed towards him, and Takashi directly used the death eye. All their attacks were full of countless flaws in his eyes. He didn't need much power at all, and every attack could clearly attack their most painful place. In less than 2 minutes, the other side had already fallen to the ground. He looked at the commander with a half smile. "How is it? Do you want to fight again?" Chapter 78, The Strange Mist Village. Takashi did not kill the leader. However, this guy was ruthless. There were dead companions around him. He suddenly threw a few black balls at them. These things drilled into their companions' bodies like insects and turned into a pool of blood after a while. This kind of method is to destroy the corpses and wipe out the traces. If this mission fails, I'm afraid that everyone will face this result. It must not be discovered by others. To have such awareness, he must not be an ordinary ninja. Seeing that Takashi did not mean to kill him, he tried to turn around and leave. Seeing that Takashi really did not need to do it, he used all his strength to escape quickly. I don't know how long it has been since I saw such a terrifying person. Whether it is speed, strength or the sophistication of attack, they are all extremely rare for him. If this mission fails, it is estimated that he will receive a very severe punishment. When he ran for more than half an hour, he saw that there was no figure behind him, so he breathed a sigh of relief. What he didn't know was that Takashi had been moving quickly above him, making it impossible for him to find him. Until the man arrived at the meeting place, he was seen half kneeling in front of a man, telling the process of the failed mission. The man in front did not speak, but just nodded gently. Takashi saw that the man looked familiar through the moonlight, but when he saw the ninja emblem on his forehead, he was suddenly stunned. Sure enough, it was almost the same as he thought. The other party really came from the Hidden Mist village, and this man was the right-hand man of the Mizukage king who could use the white eye. It seems that he should have instructed this matter, but why did they do this? Is it really worth breaking up with Konoha for an inexplicable ninjutsu? However, this kind of thing is not within his thinking range. Since they did this, he would just kill them. He did not intend to kill the two of them, because there might be a bigger movement behind them. If these two people died, wouldn't it mean that they had already alerted the snakes, and the people behind them would definitely hide deeper, and it would be more difficult to investigate again? When the people of Konoha found the location, they looked at everything here, and were all a little confused, because it was Mike who led the way this time. There were some traces of fighting around, but it was not serious, and there were puddles of rotten black water on the ground, emitting a foul smell. Cheyenne covered her nose on the side. What is going on? Ningxi used his white eyes to observe the surroundings, but he didn't find anything. However, his smart mind still thought that there should have been a big battle here, and these black waters should be made of those dead guys. If nothing unexpected happens, there should be nothing here, and even the bodies of the people who came to pick us up have not been found. Hearing what Ningxi said, the others also felt that it made sense, but they couldn't go back yet. They had to find the person who issued the task to confirm before they could go back. They simply searched around, but after searching for a long time, they didn't find anything useful. Until a few hours later, they lit a bonfire on the spot and planned to spend the night here tonight and continue searching after dawn tomorrow. As a result, they never expected that the shield guard would walk towards them carefully with a girl. Several people felt the sound of the footsteps at the same time and shouted in unison. Who? Shield guard said immediately. Are you the people from Konoha who came to rescue? I'm the one asking for help from you. This is a lady named Aang. They hurriedly asked Zheng Bingli what happened here before. They heard that a masked man helped him block the looters, which made Niji and the others very curious. Who would help this unknown family? However, they didn't plan to go back so easily. If there were any special circumstances later, it would be bad. They simply stayed here for another 2 days. When they learned that the forbidden technique was actually embedded directly in the girl's body, the others were even more surprised. No wonder they hid this little girl here. It turned out that she was a mobile forbidden technique. On the other side, Takashi followed King directly. He planned to see what this guy's purpose was. To be precise, he should see what the purpose of the Hidden Mist village was. This behavior was really too contrary to common sense. In order not to be discovered, Takashi was always in the sky, hiding in the night, and blending into it. He wanted to see who was behind the scenes. He saw King came to a very hidden foot of the mountain. Then he saw who the person opposite him was. A man wearing a white mask and carrying a huge steel fan behind him looked particularly mysterious under the moonlight. Takashi was so familiar with this guy. It turned out that King's behavior here was actually guided by Uchiha Obito. He originally thought that this might be Pain behind the scenes. It seems that Uchiha did not trust Nagato and his guys very much. I don't know if it was because of the failure of the several attempts to snatch the tailed beasts that he felt some crisis, so he wanted to develop other forces. But Takashi couldn't figure out how he could get the Mizukage to join their forces and how much it would cost. What they need is to destroy the entire ninja world. Anyone with a normal mind will not get involved, but he will definitely investigate these things in the future. It is better not to alert the enemy at this stage. In his eyes, the Hidden Mist Village has not caused much trouble so far, and he is not afraid, even if the Mizukage comes in person. So, he continued to listen to their discussion below, but suddenly heard a very interesting conversation. King said cautiously, "If you want to capture the Vulpix, please act as soon as possible to avoid more trouble." Uchiha said slowly, "This matter depends on your sincerity. If you don't show enough sincerity, I find it hard to believe that we can continue to cooperate." Hearing this, he frowned, and then he could only sigh helplessly. "Okay, I can help you capture it, but the premise is not to make this matter too public, and don't hurt other people in the Hidden Mist Village. Of course, since I promised you something, there is no need to regret it." Takashi shook his head when he heard it from above. Poor Yu-Gi-Oh! He didn't even know that he was sold out. If King and others were asked to take action, I don't know what method they would use. If he didn't know about this matter, it would be fine, but since he knew it, he would definitely intervene. Chapter 79, Shuriken. After discussing, the two of them left here quickly. After discussing the measures for the capture, they felt that it was very reliable. They planned to let Yu-Gi-Oh's master extract it, and Uchiha would assist on the side, and would never let him escape. In fact, this kind of thing was done by him alone, without notifying anyone. It was mainly because Pain and Akatsuki went to capture the Four Tails and the Two Tails, and there was no room for other forces for the time being. It was too early to expose his identity now, so he came up with this method of killing someone with a borrowed knife, and this was also a risky move for him. If he secretly contacted the Land of Water, it might be able to play a miraculous effect and catch other ninja villages off guard. The next day, Yu-Gi-Oh trained with his master as usual, and what surprised him was that King, who usually didn't come to them, actually said he wanted to see how they were progressing. In the past, the people who came were not him, but special personnel, but they were all well-known figures in the village. Yu-Gi-Oh didn't doubt it much, but he didn't know that a sinful hand was already rushing towards it. When the two of them were almost done practicing, King said in a pretentious manner, "How is the number of people that you told the Mizukage about before being able to extract the tailed beasts?" This sentence was not said to Yu-Gi-Oh, but to his master. Yu-Gi-Oh, who was unaware of the situation, was also stunned when he heard this. He didn't know when his master would have such a number of people, and looked over with a little doubt. But his master was. His tone was involuntarily. "I haven't completely mastered this ninjutsu yet. If it fails, it may hurt you, so I didn't tell you, and I was most afraid that you would have some resistance. Originally, I wanted to perform it when you didn't know, so that the failure rate would be minimized." Yu-Gi-Oh felt a little ashamed when he heard this. His master had always been so considerate of him, but he still couldn't unleash the most powerful power of the tailed beasts, and because of his identity, he also trapped his master here in disguise. This kind of self-blame, coupled with the fact that King had already said this, Yu-Gi-Oh pondered for a while, as if he had decided something, and said heavily, "Master, I have decided to cooperate with you in performing this ninjutsu. I absolutely believe that you will not harm me. Whether it succeeds or not, I will not have any complaints." Hearing his apprentice's words, he was not there at the time, and felt a little emotional and sad, but he still decided to respect his apprentice's choice. At this time, a barely perceptible smile flashed across King's face. This was the effect he wanted. This kind of boring emotion should not appear on a real ninja. He had calculated these two guys. Although they were powerful, there were loopholes in this kind of emotion. The three of them returned to the cave together, and Shihirobito had been waiting here for a long time, and found a good angle to watch everything going on below. Yu-Gi-Oh would never have thought that the person who really calculated him would be his companion. As long as the six tails are separated, all the other people here will be killed. At that time, just find a random reason. After all, it is King's words, which are more credible. Yu-Gi-Oh was lying on the stone slab in the cave. A mysterious spell appeared on his body. Then a red formation appeared on the ground. Chakra gradually gathered on his body, trying to peel off the tailed beast. Uchiha Obito's eyes were fixed on this place, and he would not miss any situation here. And King's eyes were full of heat, but just when he was about to succeed, a shuriken suddenly flew out from somewhere, and hit Yu-Gi-Oh's master on the shoulder. With a cry of pain, he stopped performing ninjutsu. Moreover, this shuriken technique was very unique and the speed was very fast, which made his whole arm powerless, and he couldn't even make a seal again. Yu-Gi-Oh quickly turned over and came to the master's side, observing who was around. He didn't find anything, so he helped the master take out the shuriken. Then a blood flower appeared. I'm fine, but I'm afraid we can't stay here anymore. If nothing unexpected happens, this place has been known by others. Yu-Gi-Oh smelled a smell called conspiracy, and he suddenly looked at King behind him. What on earth is going on? King was a little nervous, but still denied it. How should I know what's going on? You two are around here every day, so you should know more about it than me. Yu-Gi-Oh continued to ask aggressively. Did the Mizukage send you here, or did you do it on your own? You have never been here before. Why did you come here today, and why did you happen to be attacked so coincidentally? Do you think I'm a fool? Master Yu-Gi-Oh reacted, and felt that this matter was indeed a bit strange. He looked at King with unfriendly eyes. But in the next moment, a black hand went straight through Master Yu-Gi-Oh's heart, and he fell straight to the ground without even saying the last word. Yu-Gi-Oh was shocked. Who are you? While speaking, he took out his alloy bubble straw and then launched an attack, blowing out countless black bubbles at once, and then constantly exploding in the air to cover his sight. But these little tricks are just a piece of cake for Uchiha Obito, but at this moment he is more suspicious about who fired the shuriken just now. Could it be that his affairs have been discovered by others? But no matter what, he had to take the Six Tails today. However, he did underestimate the level of the Six Tails Jinchuriki. He was very familiar with the application of his own power and the power of the tailed beasts, and could even switch between the two. This restricted Uchiha Obito's capture action to a certain extent, and King also completely exposed his true colors at this time, helping Uchiha Obito to capture together. Although this guy's not as powerful as Kakashi, he is still a very powerful Jonin, at least much more powerful than the average Jonin. In addition, he can use the Byakugan, so Yu-Gi-Oh was seriously injured while running all the way. However, his tenacious will to survive, and the anger of his master dying in front of him made him survive, and he happened to stumble into the Tsuchigumo camp. At this time, Might Guy and the others had not left yet, and planned to guard here for 2 days. After all, they had accepted the mission. If they went back without doing anything, they would feel uneasy. They were continuing to practice in the morning that day, but they heard continuous explosions in the distance. Ninji and others quickly rushed to the scene of the accident. It would have been better if they hadn't looked, but when they did, they were shocked. Chapter 80, The Power of Physical Techniques. Yu-Gi-Oh's body was tattered by the explosion. Might Guy rushed to the front after seeing this. After helping him up, he was relieved to see that he was not breathing too hard. Then he asked quickly, "Who are you? How did you get injured like this?" Yu-Gi-Oh barely opened his eyes and saw their familiar head emblem. He didn't expect that they were people from Konoha, so he said quickly, help me, I'm the Six Tails Jinchuriki of a hidden mist village, and someone is chasing me." Then he fainted before he finished speaking. The masked man behind him chased him out directly, but because he was very fast, King hadn't caught up yet. When Uchiha Obito saw their figures, he quickly sent a signal to King, telling him not to come out. If he was discovered, things would be bad. At this moment, Uchiha Obito was not wearing the familiar clothes. Instead, he was wearing a navy blue tight clothes, carrying the weapon of Uchiha Madara on his back, but he didn't reveal his identity. Seeing this guy so suspicious, Might Guy directly protected Yu-Gi-Oh behind him. Although the relationship between their two villages was not very harmonious, he could not ignore it, especially since this person's identity was very special. If something unexpected happened, it would be difficult to explain to the third Hokage. In addition, so many students behind him were looking at him, and he could not retreat. Uchiha Obito was also determined to get the six-tailed fox, and he could not get out of the way, even if this guy was in front of him. Moreover, they were all from the same period. Uchiha Obito looked down on this last player in his heart. Even after so many years, he did not think he could compete with him, especially now that he had become so powerful. The incarnation rushed over, and Shianshin used shuriken to cover him from behind, but these hands went straight through Uchiha Obito's body in an instant, as if they had touched the air. Might Guy also frowned when he saw this. In this situation, his physical skills seemed to be a little difficult to use. He took out two nunchakus from the back and clamped them under his armpits, and Uchiha Obito also pulled out the steel floating fan behind him. In a blink of an eye, the two had fought for dozens of rounds. Even with the current physical skills, Uchiha Obito was still remarkable. Might Guy thought of this, and directly opened the seventh gate. A strong chakra burst out from his body. This ninjutsu overdrafted his body. Uchiha Obito had heard of this ninjutsu before, but he didn't know how powerful this ninjutsu could be. He only knew that after the 8th gate was fully opened, the steam in his body would turn into blood-colored steam, and all the evaporated blood was his own blood, which was very powerful. But so far, Might Guy didn't intend to fight to the death, so he only opened the 7th gate. After the explosion, he flew up and directly made a move towards the peacock. His fists waving all over the sky rubbed the air, forming strong sparks. At this time, Uchiha Obito directly used Kamu and disappeared in space, and then appeared above Might Guy, and a pair of evil black hands attacked Might Guy's head. But he obviously underestimated the speed of the number of people in the 8 gates of Dungia, and Niji exclaimed. Might Guy used an incredible angle and used a daytime tiger move upwards, and the powerful air bullet flew upwards. He turned his body into nothingness again, letting the tiger-shaped air bullet pass through his body. Might Guy suddenly said, "The three of you take the six-tailed Jinchuriki away first. I will stop this guy." After hearing this, the three did not intend to entangle with this mysterious man here. Even if the teacher opened the 8 gates to the 7th gate, he could only barely compete with him. They were just a burden here, which would only affect the teacher's performance. So they gritted their teeth and left here directly. Then they asked the shield guard and Aang to leave together, because they didn't know what other purposes this person had, so it was better to leave together. When they learned that the person was very strong, their hearts tightened. Even they said that the person was strong, so how should they deal with it? Aang was ready to use forbidden techniques if she had to. Although she couldn't control it completely, she could still cause some damage to the invader. After all, it is a weakened version of Shinra Tensei, and this move is only better than Shinra Tensei, in that it has a longer lasting destructive power, but its weakness is that it takes a long time to charge. Seeing his prey running away, Uchiha Obito did not intend to tangle with Might Guy. He flashed and used a fake move to pass through his body, and then planned to bypass this simple-minded and well-developed guy. He had to admit that in the years he had been hiding, everyone was getting stronger, not just him. Just when he was about to leave, he was full of pride, and Shianshin and the others were not idle either, setting up a lot of traps and detonating tags along the way. However, this kind of thing is like a toy to Uchiha Obito, but at this moment, he suddenly felt a cool breeze on the back of his head. Takashi used the mystic eye of death in the dark to find several flaws in his body. If he was hit by one of the 3 shurikens, it would seriously affect his speed. But Uchiha Obito's reaction speed was indeed very fast. When the shuriken was less than 10 centimeters away from his body, he immediately turned his body into nothingness. These shurikens completely brushed past the figure around Might Guy. Of course, he could also feel the shurikens passing by at a very fast speed, but he could clearly feel that these shurikens did not pose any threat to him, because the target was not him. At this moment, Uchiha Obito could completely confirm that the guy who attacked him was the same person who released the hateful shuriken in the cave, because the timing was so exquisite that it would not have achieved the current effect if it was earlier or later. He looked hard in the direction where the shuriken was launched. Unfortunately, he had the Sharingan instead of the Byakugan, so he could not see Takashi's position clearly, and King, who could determine Takashi's position, could not show up at this moment. After seeing this situation, Takashi did not stay here for long, but turned around and left directly, because in this situation, unless Uchiha Obito burst out all his strength to fight with Gai, it would be absolutely impossible to catch up with Yu-Gi-Oh and the others. Since there was nothing for him to do, he was too lazy to get involved here. Because he had a three-tailed beast in his body, he was relatively relaxed now, because no matter how much the other party lacked a tailed beast, they could not completely summon the 10-tailed beast. And the direction he returned to was Konoha village. He put the matter of the hidden mist village behind his mind for the time being, and he wanted to see how Orochimaru had made recent progress. Chapter 81, Transporting Goods. He returned to Konoha village in the middle of the night, and the craftsmen he found had already determined the rules in advance. They had to work 24 hours a day and night shifts to barely catch up with the deadline. Although the workload of making HUO Killin number 1 was not particularly large, the accessories of this thing were very delicate. You must know that the steel tools used in this era are all very rough and simple to make. There are no very troublesome gears or something like that, and the production of Mars number 1 requires very small gears to operate it, and there are other very delicate line work. When he went there, he found that no one was lazy, and they were all working in full swing. This is the magic of money. The price he offered was more than 3 times the salary of the same industry, and their leader's salary was 5 times. And Takashi had completely promised them that, if there were no defects in this batch of goods, they would receive additional bonuses. Moreover, he could give them a few days off when he left, and they could even go back to the Iron Country with him to rest. In this era, it was a luxury for a worker to have a holiday, and their wages would be paid as usual during this rest period. This paid leave method was very advanced, which surprised the workers, and made them work harder. After a long time, they got used to this kind of work and rest schedule. Gyokyo inspected the area, and came in quietly. The sound of his entry was too small, and the sound of iron making even covered it. He stayed in the house for nearly 20 minutes before being discovered. He said, "You are doing very well, don't worry, I can continue." When he said that he would take them back to the Iron Country for a vacation tomorrow, everyone's face was filled with excited smiles. Although the salary here is very high, the Iron Country is his home after all. Then he went down to the basement to see if all the products were qualified. The complete Fire Kirin number 1 was not produced here, but all kinds of accessories were produced, and all the testing links had to be carried out in the Iron Country, so that Orochimaru could do it again, which could also prevent others from stealing the skills. Because there are still many things to do when making adjustments, such as polishing, energy replacement, and various precise debugging. This link is also very important. If the weak points are ignored or not done well, the accuracy and power of the gun will be greatly reduced. And this time when Takashi and his team came to the Iron Country, they actually found that the people guarding the gate of the Iron Country had replaced the samurai swords in their hands with the Fire Kirin number 1 they were using at the moment. People who came and went looked at this strange weapon a few more times, but there were not too many questions. After all, each country has its own way of using it. After Takashi came here, he also disguised himself to cover his face, and also put the name of the Chamber of Commerce when he came. When they heard that these people were actually here to transport the accessories of the Fire Kirin number 1, everyone's eyes changed, because only they knew how powerful this weapon was. It can be said that this kind of thing has brought them strong confidence, but so far they are not very skilled in using it because of the lack of actual combat opportunities, and they have not yet developed a particularly practical training method. After seeing their unfamiliar way of holding the gun, Gyokyo immediately thought of this. He had watched a lot of military programs in his previous life, and he still had some insights into the training methods of this kind of thing. At least it was much better than this. He planned to systematically publish a tutorial book to make a lot of money. Gyokyo brought a few people to the Chamber of Commerce because they needed to be responsible for the accessories they made. Only if there was no problem with any of the accessories could they leave, otherwise their wages would be deducted according to the proportion. But after he came here, he did not find the figure of Orochimaru. After asking carefully, he found out that Orochimaru had made a new breakthrough in weapons and went out to conduct new experiments. Gyokyo was very happy to hear this, and he hoped that his own weapons could be more powerful. In less than an hour, all the accessories were checked and found that they were all qualified. Although this was within his expectations, he was still very satisfied with the craftsmen he selected. Although these girls all used some traditional forging techniques, the quality of their forging was solid. It was not until almost evening that Orochimaru came back. When he came back, he saw Takashi waiting for him here, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "Why didn't you tell me in advance? By the way, did you receive my message about the little snake I sent last time?" Takashi just gave him a look and asked him to go back to the house first, and the two of them talked slowly. The two came to a remote house, which was a room around the laboratory for Orochimaru to use for rest. As soon as he entered the house, Takashi talked about this matter and told the process. Orochimaru was amazed when he heard it. He had studied the tailed beasts for a long time, but he had never heard of anything that could emit an aura to shock it. However, when this happened to Takashi, he was not too surprised, as if many miracles happened to him, which should be commonplace. But as long as he can control the tailed beast, it would be better, and his message would not be conveyed in vain. The two talked about the materials sent today. Orochimaru suddenly asked, "How are the materials this time?" Takashi said confidently, "No problem at all. The craftsmen of the Iron Country are really skilled. There is nothing to criticize about their craftsmanship. Not only that, every component has met our requirements. It depends on you in the future." Orochimaru nodded. At this time, Takashi suddenly remembered that Orochimaru went out to test new weapons today. "By the way, have you made any new breakthroughs in technology? I heard from others that you went out to test new weapons. Tell me if there is any progress. Maybe I can give you some constructive suggestions." When talking about this kind of thing, Orochimaru was excited. As a scientific madman, he was naturally interested in inventions. Then he talked about his own views. "Although our guns are very powerful and very fast, I always feel that they are still a little weak in power. Not only that, the range is not enough. I wonder if I can continue to give him more power to make him burst out a stronger attack in a short period of time." Then he took out a blueprint. After Takashi looked at it, he took a breath. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Technology Upgrade, The Power of Barret. The reason why Geo was surprised was mainly because this design drawing somewhat subverted his three views. Although this plan was already within his calculation range, he did not expect that Orochimaru could produce the drawing of this thing so quickly, and then he could conduct experiments. You must know that firearms are not just about increasing the power. To increase the power of the equipment, there are many other things to consider, such as stability and accuracy. If you blindly increase the amount of medicine, the firearm will lose its most basic function. This thing is familiar to anyone who has played FPS games, because it is a very classic anti-machine weapon, the famous Barret sniper rifle. Although there are some differences in appearance, the general decoration is still the same. This really surprised Takashi, and then he asked in surprise, "How did you come up with this design?" When Orochimaru saw Takashi's expression, he knew that the design of his firearm must be very much in line with his appetite, and the two of them might even have thought of the same thing. "It's very simple. My goal is to make a gun that can assassinate a Jonin or even a Hokage." Such treasonous words can only be said in front of Takashi, and he doesn't care. The two of them were relatively relaxed in the process of getting along, because Orochimaru could clearly feel the special temperament of Geo without the traditional decadent ideas. Although he was kind-hearted, he never showed mercy at the critical moment. For such a person full of mysterious aura, Orochimaru wanted to squeeze all the scientific knowledge from him. Then, he took out a long data about sniper rifles. Takashi was even more surprised when he saw it, because he found that the range of this thing had reached 1 kilometer, and it was an effective killing range. The scopes on it were greatly improved. The most important thing is naturally the power. When talking about these, Orochimaru's face was slightly proud. If there is any item that I'm most satisfied with in my life, it must be the thing on the design drawing in your hand. Then he took out a Barrett experimental sample from the box, and Takashi took a look. Basically, there is no big problem. It's just that the muzzle is easy to explode because the power is too strong. No matter what kind of metal is used for the muzzle, it can't withstand it, which makes Orochimaru a little troubled. But Gyokushio just said simply, if you add a rectangular iron block in front of the muzzle, can it be stabilized and prevent it from melting? When Orochimaru heard this, his eyes lit up instantly. My god, I have been thinking hard for so long, and I didn't think of it. You broke it with just one sentence. If you put all your thoughts into the manufacture of firearms, you will definitely make a weapon that can kill the Hokage. Takashi said, isn't that simple? As long as you can understand all the weapons of the Iron Man armor, this kind of thing is not difficult at all. Make a missile, not to mention the Hokage. Even Konoha village can be completely blown up for you, but this kind of thing now requires too much money and space, which is not within their current consideration. Even if this kind of large-scale lethal weapon is known to others, it may even be assassinated by a joint multinational alliance, because this kind of thing is too powerful, and no village cage will allow it. They did it right away. After hearing this magical method, Orochimaru was immediately inspired. Even the workers didn't have to do it themselves, and Takashi was too lazy to move, and he just gave instructions on the side. It wasn't until the second half of the night that they finally made a preliminary transformation of the Barrett. Although this gun had a strong lethality, it also had a problem. That is, it needed strong chakra to activate it before it could be used. At least it required people of the Jonin level to use it. Fortunately, they were also equipped with some batteries that stored chakra energy. After a battery was fully charged, it could release 10 bullets in a row, which was a very hard-won progress. On the second day, they couldn't wait to come to a barren mountain around the Iron Country. There was no one around who could let them put their minds at ease to conduct experiments. When Orochimaru tried it before, he used it standing up like holding the Fire Kirin #1. When Takashi saw it, he frowned. You use this powerful hibiki like this, won't the recoil make your shoulder hurt? Orochimaru nodded in surprise. You're right, but if it's not like this, it won't be so powerful. Takashi looked around, and with a lightsaber in his hand, he chopped a big tree into a rack, and then put it on the ground. Put this gun on this rack and try it. Orochimaru put the Barrett on the rack, and then carried the butt of the gun on his shoulder. His eyes lit up. This effect is indeed more comfortable to use, and it doesn't take much physical effort. The most important thing is to keep the trajectory of the ball stable. Then he looked at a huge tree in the distance through the scope. These are all things they marked in advance. There is no one around. Then a shot was fired, and the powerful force blew away all the fallen leaves around. This power is more powerful than Barrett, because the power used is chakra, and the power depends on the concentration of chakra in the body. A shot was fired, and a flash of fire exploded in the distance. The mark was actually blown up directly. Takashi nodded when he saw such power. Very good, I didn't expect this effect, but don't be proud, we still have more room for improvement. Orochimaru did not deny this, because as soon as he got started, he knew that both the feel and the connecting parts needed a lot of room for improvement. However, they were very satisfied that they could achieve such power in the first test. Every firearm needs to be constantly polished before it can be used. After all, they are not using gunpowder, but more powerful chakra. Takashi saw the power of this thing, and was already looking forward to seeing what kind of effect the missile would have. Then Takashi instilled some technical knowledge about bombs into Orochimaru. After hearing this, his eyes glowed even brighter. It was obvious that he had thought of this thing before, but it could not be implemented due to some technical means. The two people's ideas are always so compatible, and this thing still needs them to be constantly updated and iterated. Before that, he has another very important thing. Chapter 83, Larger Scale, Superior Status. Takashi said to Orochimaru very seriously, can we enter the Iron Country training team and observe how they use our firearms? Orochimaru was a little puzzled. Why? Takashi explained carefully. Because ninjas have been using shurikens and cold weapons for many years, they will definitely have some ninja habits after the first use, and most people may have some very bad habits. We need to correct this. If it is really impossible to correct it, we also need to make appropriate changes to make it easier for them to pick up. We must not let the warriors who use him die in the hands of their companions. Hearing this, Orochimaru showed a trace of admiration in his eyes, because this kind of thing is too meticulous, and it requires a strong sense of responsibility to think about it. In this world, where human lives are worthless, this kind of thinking is very rare. Even a big country like the Iron Country, that produces weapons, will not care about whether their knives are easy for others to hold. They will only think that there is something wrong with you who use the knife, and they will never change it. However, when Gyokyo thought about this problem, he thought that it should be very difficult to enter the training team. After all, this is a national secret. The way of training teams in each country is different. If it is known by others, it may become a sharp blade of death for their own people. And Orochimaru smiled lightly. You underestimate the influence of our Chamber of Commerce now. Although we don't have the name of Konoha now, we have also gained greater freedom at the same time, allowing more people to know our weapons. However, we have not exported any weapons so far. All weapons are sold to the Iron Country. It can be said that they are very dependent on us now. It can be said that, as long as our requirements are not too outrageous, the Iron Country will meet them at all costs. Gyokyo did not expect that the status of their Chamber of Commerce has risen to this level in the Iron Country. He underestimated the importance of such powerful weapons to a country's strength. Thinking of this, Gyokyo suddenly had another idea. He wanted to meet the name of the Iron Country. Maybe they could reach a very pleasant cooperation. He did not tell Orochimaru about this matter for the time being, fearing that if he told it, the latter would look at him with a very strange look. You have to know that the daimyo of a country is the supreme ruler, and his status is even much higher than that of the shadow in the village. They influence the direction of a country, and the village is just a weapon to defend the country. To put it bluntly, they are just an organization similar to mercenaries. The daimyo is the one who pays, and who is higher, and who is lower can be seen from this, but he still thinks that if the daimyo of the Iron Country is an open-minded person, he will definitely not give up the opportunity for this cooperation, and this is also the first step for Takashi to take his real plan. The place where their Chamber of Commerce is located is directly in the capital of the Iron Country, so there are not many troops trained around. In addition to a close ace unit commanded by Mifune, there is only one other one, and Takashi does not intend to trouble Mifune. He plans to wait until the Barrett sniper rifle is completely available before looking for this guy. After all, he is in the position of a general, which can be said to be above one person and below 10,000 people. Things that can trouble him must be a big deal. This guy's favor is very valuable, and he doesn't want to waste it unless it is absolutely necessary. So they went directly to another smaller training camp. Although it was relatively small, there were as many as 1,500 people. However, these people were not ninjas, but samurai who practiced chakra. Although most of them had accepted the powerful firepower of Fire Kirin No. 1, they had not completely abandoned the Bushido tradition they adhered to. Therefore, most of the teams were still equipped with samurai swords on their waists. These blades had a very good chakra conduction system, and Fire Kirin No. 1 was placed on the other side of them, which could attack from near or far. When they arrived at the door, Takashi did not often show up here, so he knew very few people, but Orochimaru often walked around here, so he knew a lot of people. As soon as they arrived here, the two guards at the door actually saluted Orochimaru in the Iron Country, which made Takashi look at him with some new eyes. I didn't expect that he was doing well here. You know, this guy's now a person who is hated by everyone in Konoha. And from another perspective, although they are doing a lot of business here now, they also bring very generous taxes to the Iron Country. As for how much money he made during this period, he had not had time to check the accounts, but it was estimated that it should be a considerable income. After entering, he found that they were training, forming one square after another. Each square had about 300 people, a total of 5 squares, and the commander in front looked very scary with angry eyes. The way they used it was a little different from what the college thought. When charging, they used to hold a knife in one hand and a gun in the other hand. Takashi was thinking about how to maximize the efficiency of use while observing, but soon he thought that, if he used it this way, there would be a lot of trouble with dual weapons. If the longsword is modified on the weapon, it will save a lot of trouble, but in that case, the gun body itself needs to be reinforced again. But I believe they are still willing to accept this breakthrough. And now if you use that kind of long weapon, the samurai sword must not be used anymore, Orochimaru suddenly said at this time. Will the samurai sword be more effective if it is held in reverse grip? Takashi was stunned, and then said, what would be the effect if the samurai sword was installed on the arm? After this question was asked, both of them were stunned. This would not only effectively strengthen close combat, but also catch the enemy off guard. If a spring was added, it would have a stronger attack power. The two became more and more excited as they talked, and their voices became louder and louder, gradually attracting the attention of the trainer on the side. Suddenly, someone said to satisfiedly, who are you, and how can you come in here? As soon as he finished speaking, someone next to him immediately scolded him. The weapon in your hand was made by someone else. The Lord of the Chamber of Commerce is developing and considering more advanced weapons for us. Apologize to the Lord quickly. Others also looked at him in the same way. In the Iron Country, the stronger the weapon, the more respected it will be. And Orochimaru and his team were able to create such a cross-era weapon, and they have been listed as the top of the chain of admiration. Chapter 84 Teaching Mifune. Orochimaru and Takashi came here without any other ideas, just wanting to see the latest technology here, but they never thought that their arrival would alarm many people and completely underestimate their influence. Not long after, Mifune came here in person, when he heard that Takashi was back. You should know that this is not his main training base, and he may not come here for a year or two. What's more important is that Orochimaru pushed all the credit for making Fire Kirin number 1 to Takashi, and Mifune treated this weapon genius like a guest of honor. After seeing him, he smiled countless times. Looking at his appearance, if he had a daughter, he would definitely give her to Takashi first. After meeting, he said politely, why didn't you tell me in advance that you were coming, so that I could send someone out of the city to meet you? Takashi was a little embarrassed when he heard this. If he was asked to send someone out of the city to meet you, it would be a big battle. He wanted to be low-key, and it would not be good if he was discovered. Mr. Mifune is too polite. I just came to see how our weapons are doing. If they are not good, we can make some improvements. If they are damaged, we can also repair them. It's just that we will charge a small repair fee. You don't have to worry about this. We will never ask for too much. Mifune was still very relieved about this. No matter what, although their weapons are a little more expensive, the quality is absolutely impeccable. However, after seeing their training methods, Takashi felt that there was some difference, so Mifune explained to him. We are combining your new weapons with our traditional skills, which will definitely achieve twice the result with half the effort. If you want to see it, we can show you. After hearing this, the others were eager to try. Facing the founder of this weapon, they all wanted to be recognized. This is also an old problem in their bones. Being recognized by the creator of the weapon is something they are very proud of. Then they started some self-created techniques, but in Takashi's eyes, he frowned. This method obviously wasted a lot of energy. Not only that, there was a lot of space in one hand with a pistol and the other hand with a knife. If it was a close combat, it would be easy to be ambushed. So, he told Mifune about putting a knife on a gun. The latter was also surprised after hearing it. He immediately thought that this method was very clever. It would not lose their spirits, but also make their attack range farther, even closer or farther. Then Takashi took out a Fire Kirin number 1 with a bayonet that they had made before from the space ring like a magic trick. However, this bayonet was longer than before, making it easier for them to hold. However, some removable spare batteries were also placed on the butt of the gun, which made them feel very considerate. They had not thought of such a good thing. Then Makoa asked a soldier to handle it and pick up the newly modified Fire Kirin number 1. Fight with their traditional methods to see how the specific effect is. After all, although it looks very good, practice is the standard for testing things. It is useless to simply imagine out of thin air. However, after the soldier took the Kirin #1 with a bayonet, it was like a tiger with wings, because the attack range of the fire Kirin #1 with a bayonet was longer than the original samurai sword. The so-called 1 inch longer, 1 inch stronger is this truth. In addition, the front is fixed very firmly when swinging, and the power is no less than their previous swords. The most important thing is that it can be interspersed with long-range shooting while attacking, and in this case, the attack combined with the two is not stiff at all. The guy who was holding a samurai sword in one hand and the fire Kirin #1 in the other hand was defeated, and Sancho cheered again and again. Then he said, "Then please trouble Mr. Takashi to modify these guns of ours, but don't worry, we will pay for these modification costs in full, and will never default on them." Takashi naturally would not worry about these things. After all, the modification would not cost much money. Compared with the cost of creating and building guns before, it was just a drop in the bucket. In fact, the craftsmen of their iron country are also fully capable of doing this kind of thing, but Mifune thinks that this thing is produced by others, and it would be bad if the craftsmen of their own country messed it up. On the other hand, they are also afraid that Takashi will be offended because of such a small profit, which is too much of a loss. If this mission weapon is brought to other countries, it is simply unimaginable. Although they are a neutral country now, after other countries have powerful weapons, who can guarantee that they will not invade their countries? He is still very clear about this kind of thing. Not only that, Takashi continued, "I don't know if I should say it or not." Sailing said immediately after listening, "Mr. Takashi is a loyal ally of our iron country. No matter what you have to say, you can say it directly." At this point, his status has long been upgraded. He is no longer just an ordinary businessman, but has been elevated to the level of an ally. You must know that ordinary countries or even ninja villages are qualified to be called allies, which shows how much they value Takashi. Then he took out a training program for firearms accuracy and gave it to Mifune. Although these things are not particularly difficult for current ninjas, they can be mastered as long as they train for a period of time, but he believes that if this training program is given to them, it will definitely be able to shine more powerfully. It is not difficult to make a deeper transformation of this training program, and it can be combined with their own training conditions to make a most suitable training program, which will definitely achieve twice the result with half the effort. As expected, Mifune looked at the novel training methods in the book and his eyes lit up. Mr. Takashi is indeed a strange man. Not only can he design such a powerful weapon, but he can also think of all the training methods one by one. Although I personally think that the above things are deliberately simple, they are still very meaningful for reference. Takashi also nodded. This is the attitude he wanted. If he copied it directly, he would look down on Mifune. After all, this is also a ninja who was once recognized by Hands of the Salamander. He is definitely not a simple person. Then he called a few capable men and handed the things to them for appropriate changes. Then he told Takashi that after they finished the changes, he was welcome to come again for guidance. This was already a very high standard of courtesy. You have to know that this is the Iron Country Army with a regular organization, and it is such a great honor for him, an outsider, to come and guide. Chapter 85 The Shock of the Sniper Rifle. Originally, Mifune thought that Takashi was only here to instruct them and take a look at the guns for modification. But he didn't expect that Takashi actually had a bigger business coming to him. Then he looked at Takashi and said, "Mifune-sama, I definitely can't come here just for this matter. I recently invented a new weapon. I wonder if you are interested in taking a look." Hearing this, Mifune immediately became interested. How could he not be interested in taking a look? He was really interested. However, after all, he is now in a high position and cannot show too much excitement. He can only suppress his emotions slightly, but the joy in his eyes cannot be concealed. Even if he hides it well, he can't escape Takashi's eyes. He wants to see this effect, and then said, "If Mifune-sama is interested, that would be great. If you are not here, I'm not sure about using it." This not only raised his status, but also gave Mifune face. Then he took out his successfully assembled Barrett sniper rifle. The Barrett sniper rifle is longer than the Fire Kirin #1 with a bayonet, and it is also much heavier, at least several times heavier. After seeing this thing, Mifune was a little disappointed. He originally thought that Takashi could come up with a lighter and more portable weapon with more powerful firepower. But he never thought that such a heavy thing could be taken to the battlefield. Moreover, the original Fire Kirin No. 1 had a relatively good recoil. If it was several times larger than the previous Fire Kirin No. 1, the recoil would definitely be stronger, and the accuracy would be greatly affected. Although Mifune is not a craftsman, it cannot be denied that he has a very accurate standard for looking at guns and equipment on the battlefield. But unfortunately, he did not have a more advanced vision, and could not judge the specific power and effect of this thing. But judging from the tone, he was indeed not that happy. Mr. Takashi, I'm not denying the use of this weapon, but this thing does not look suitable for fighting on the battlefield, and it is so big, its recoil and sound will inevitably be amplified. Even for assassination it is not very suitable. However, Takashi was not unhappy with Mifune's opinion, but rather somewhat recognized it, because he at least had this kind of military strategic thinking. Just by seeing a gun, he could think of some of the functions of subsequent weapons. Only such people had the need to cooperate. However, in response to this question, Takashi just waved his hand lightly. I'm afraid that it is impossible to test the true power of my gun here. Mr. Mifune, please come with me to the back mountain. If you are not satisfied, I have nothing to say. Mifune did not know what this routine was, but since Takashi said so, he chose to believe him. He planned to order a small batch, even if this thing was really not easy to use, so as not to ruin other people's hearts. Even if it was a loss, it was mainly to stabilize Takashi. After arriving at the back mountain, he came to the jungle where they were training, and he also brought several main members of the training army with him, all of whom were veterans who had fought together on the battlefield. After seeing the gun, they were also a little confused, not knowing what it was used for. Then Takashi began to introduce it. My gun is called Barrett. You can also call it a sniper rifle. It is used for assassination. If used properly, you can even use it to assassinate a senior or even a cage level figure. After hearing this, the few people behind him shook their heads. This was a bit too much. If they said they could kill a senior ninja, they could understand it. After all, even if there were enough detonating tags, they could kill him. But it was not easy to kill a cage. They were not like wooden stakes, motionless. Facing their doubts, Takashi was not displeased, but he set up his Barrett stand and said to the target in the distance, "Everyone, how many meters is it from here to the distant target?" The others looked at the direction Takashi pointed to, which was at least 1,500 meters away. Then they continued to ask, "Is there anyone in the entire Iron Country who can attack beyond this distance?" After saying this, Mifune was fine, but the generals behind him were a little unhappy. It was obvious that this was a mockery of their IQ. You are not kidding, let alone the entire Iron Country, who can attack at such a distance. I'm afraid that only Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama of Konoha can do it. And the distance is so far, even if they can reach it, what's the use? The power has long dissipated. The others obviously agreed with this statement. However, Takashi did not care about it. He aimed at the target he pointed to before, directly set up the Barrett sniper rifle, aimed the crosses, and looked at the wind direction around him. Then he was silent. The others also held their breath, ready to see how Takashi would operate this big guy. Then a deafening sound sounded, and with a bang, a beam of light suddenly shot out, shaking the surrounding dust, and then the target in the distance exploded with a bang. At this time, all the people who had just questioned it took a breath of cold air. What on earth could this thing be able to shoot so far? Not only that, but it was also very accurate. It was not as powerful as they thought, and the power would cause the trajectory to deviate greatly. On the contrary, it was more powerful and the firing rate was faster. Mifune was stunned when he saw this scene, and then he subconsciously applauded. This thing simply exceeded his understanding of guns, and it was horrifying that it could have such a lethality at a distance of more than 1,000 meters. Even if the distance was so far, it could still have such a powerful lethality. What if the distance was shortened to 1 kilometer or 500 meters? Wouldn't the power increase exponentially? Before, he thought it was a daydream to say that this thing could assassinate the shadow. Now it seems that this is indeed something that can be achieved, even if there are precautions. But what if it is 10 sniper rifles? Or can they defend against more? He didn't dare to think about this question. If such a large-scale weapon of destructive power was circulated in the hands of others, and then used to assassinate the daimyo of their iron country, when he thought of this, his whole back was cold. No, he must monopolize this technology in his own hands, even if it costs anything. Then the first thing Sanchuan did when he returned was to write a letter to the daimyo. Such a genius must be seen. He can be won over, but not hostile. If such a terrifying thing is leaked outside, I'm afraid there will be another bloody war. Sanchuan will never allow this to happen. Chapter 86, The Iron Country. They were originally in the capital of the Iron Country, so it was not far from the location of the Ming Dynasty. The memorial will be submitted today, and they will meet directly the next day. Takashi was also stunned after hearing this. He didn't expect that he was just showing off, but Mifune actually took it seriously. Moreover, this thing is not very reliable now, and many things need to be debugged. It will take at least a few months before it can be officially used. But since they already have such an idea, Takashi also thinks that there is nothing wrong with meeting. For this reason, Mifune also specially sent a set of clothes, saying that this is what you must wear when you go in to meet the daimyo. In fact, it is not 100% necessary to wear it, but it is more polite and easy to leave a very good impression on the people above. It was also the first time for Takashi to wear such clothes. He had wide arms and legs, a corset tied behind him, and a hat like official gauze on his head. It looked a little funny, but other people were dressed like this, so he didn't say much, and Orochimaru also changed into a similar outfit. But what he didn't expect was that the feminine face looked very harmonious after changing into these clothes. The daimyo of the Iron Country usually deals with some political affairs and rarely has time to see other people. Although I'm neutral and have not participated in many wars, I have devoted all my energy to development and the construction of strength. Therefore, his workload can be said to be no less than that of the daimyo of other countries. When he heard that Mifune had brought the people he introduced, he thought for a while and then said, "Bring them up. I want to see what kind of ability this guy who is so respected by Mifune has." You must know that the memorial that Mifune submitted yesterday was written in a flowery way and the evaluation was very high. And he did not mention the strength of this person at all, but only talked about his intelligence and creativity. In this era, where power is respected, people with creativity are often directly ignored. In the long river of history, they are rarely discovered. And what's the use, even if they are discovered? In the face of absolute power, any creation will be a blank sheet of paper if it is not protected by power. Although his army was equipped with the weapons created by this man, for a daimyo, the leader of the entire Iron Country, he still didn't take it seriously, because as a neutral country, they were strong enough, and it was icing on the cake, not a timely help. So the attitude towards Takashi was not as excited as Mifune. But when the three came forward, they were still given a very high degree of etiquette freedom. However, Takashi and others had asked Mifune to teach them the necessary etiquette in advance, and this respectful way made the daimyo very satisfied. So he asked, "Mifune, you said yesterday that there was an important thing you wanted me to see. If I have seen your previous weapons, there is no need to look at them again." But Mifune said decisively, "This weapon is very different from the previous one. It can be said that it is completely different from the past. The power is also several times the previous one. Although it has not been completed, this power is enough to attract our attention. I even suggest that we can form a team in advance for training." Hearing this, the daimyo frowned, thinking that you are a general after all. Isn't it a bit too embarrassing to react like this? But he didn't refuse directly, but asked back, "Then tell me what virtue and ability this thing has that makes us spend so much time and effort?" He was actually a little unhappy because he felt that Mifune was completely underestimating his country. Was it necessary to mobilize so many troops for this matter? Although Mifune had heard it, this thing was too important, and he didn't hesitate to offend him, so he didn't hesitate to say it without any euphemism. "This thing is indeed very powerful. I saw it with my own eyes. As long as the opportunity is right, it can even assassinate the shadow. This is absolutely true, and it doesn't require too many people. Just create an opportunity, and even one person can complete the sniper alone, even if this person is a Jonin or even a Chunin. He was a little disdainful after hearing the first half of the name, but when he heard the second half saying that this weapon could actually assassinate the shadow, he wondered if he had heard it wrong. Even though their country of Iron did not have a ninja village, the name of ninja was well known, and no one could avoid their name. The characters in the series were the leaders of each village and the best among the ninjas. His strength was ranked among the best in the world, but he actually said that there was a weapon that could assassinate them. The most exaggerated thing was that he even said that even a Chunin could use this weapon to kill the shadow. It was simply outrageous. It was not that he did not believe what the general said, but he thought they were talking nonsense. So he was a little angry. Are you taking me for a fool? Mifune, I will not bother with you this time, because you are the general. Don't test my patience with such nonsense. At this time, cold sweat had already seeped out of Mifune's forehead. Sir, every word I said is true and there is no lie at all. If what I said is true, I'm willing to accept any punishment. Takashi did not expect Mifune to say everything so firmly at once, which was also considered to be supporting him. And at this time, of course, he could not let down the chain, otherwise it would be considered to be a disguise trap for Mifune. Takashi asked back, then how can your highness believe what we say? Seeing that they were still so persistent, the daimyo couldn't help but wonder in his heart. Could it be that what they said just now was not nonsense, but was true? So he said, at night, I will accompany you to witness whether this weapon is useful. If it can't exert its original power at night, it proves that this thing is not practical at all. Mifune could hear that this was to embarrass them, because there was no such thing as infrared rays at present, and it was impossible to aim at such a distance. If he missed the powerful weapon, because of these things, he would be furious, and the Iron Country would lose a powerful military measure. He hurriedly wanted to explain how good this thing was, but was stopped by Takashi. Are you serious? The daimyo snorted. Who am I? Once I say something, I can't go back on it. As long as I say something, I will not regret it. Takashi said immediately. No problem. As long as I can meet your standards at night, you will approve of my weapon, right? Then we'll meet tomorrow night. Chapter 87. Hitting the target. The day passed quickly, and Takashi and his men disappeared. Mifune was worried about them, but he couldn't find them. First of all, although Takashi was very talented, he was still too arrogant and dared to do anything. How could he adjust the accuracy of the gun to that level in just one day? He had handled this thing countless times, and he knew the performance level better than anyone else. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh. He originally wanted to do a good thing, to make the Iron Country stronger. If he didn't do it well this time, it might backfire. How could things turn out like this? Thinking of this, he felt a little uneasy when he slept. The whole day was always fast in the past, but today it was so slow that he even felt a little tortured. He spent the whole day thinking about what to say when the time came. But after thinking about it, he couldn't come up with a brilliant solution. He could only leave it to fate and see what happened when the time came. At night, Daming was accompanied by more than 20 high-level warriors. They were all very powerful warriors. As the Imperial Guards, they were also elite warriors that Sanchoan tried his best to select. However, these people were not equipped with the Fire Kirin number 1. Instead, they still adhered to their deepest persistence, believing that only in this way could they live up to their years of training. Sanchoan was not worried about this kind of thing, because no matter what experience there is, there must be a transition period, even for himself, but he was in a high position, and had a stronger ability to respond to this kind of situation. Others have been training in their skills for decades, so how could they change at will? However, one day, he believed that these people would realize the gap between the times. The daimyo was also very proud at this moment. He didn't believe that Takashi could complete such an outrageous request, and the most fundamental reason for this kind of high-spiritedness was that he himself felt that this request was very outrageous. After waiting for a long time, he didn't see Takashi's figure. Sanchoan couldn't help but feel a little anxious. What's going on with this kid? Don't let down the chain at the critical moment. If you stand up the daimyo, you will be ashamed to face people in the future. After all, it was he who saved this matter. After more than 10 minutes, Takashi and Orochimaru finally arrived, holding the modified Fire Kirin number 1 in their hands. However, there was no big change from the last time they saw it, except that there was a very small bulge at the bottom. It might even be ignored if you don't look carefully. Mifune couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, under this situation, it was impossible to produce a new function in such a short time. It was simply too much to ask. However, he was ready to say something later. But the daimyo looked down on the two of them at this moment, with a frivolous tone. After this day, it seems that you two are almost ready. Let's get started and see how you can achieve the goal I mentioned. Takashi also showed a confident look on his face, which made Mifune look stunned. Could it be that he was overthinking? Did this kid really create some magical function in such a short time? But it doesn't matter anymore, because we will know all these things clearly in a moment. They had already sent people to the target location, holding a very weak torch in their hands. If you don't look carefully, you can't see it at all. For the lighting of the sniper rifle, it is basically equivalent to nothing. They are using it to check whether Takashi is bragging or not. They will find it. This is also what the daimyo came up with, in order to teach this ignorant kid a lesson. Takashi didn't say anything, and directly set up the sniper rifle bracket on the ground. Then he took a very standard sniper posture. After seeing this scene, Mifune quickly recorded this posture to avoid problems in the future, and he didn't have to ask Takashi for technical guidance frequently. At this time, everyone's eyes were fixed on Takashi, wanting to see how he could create miracles again. I saw his gun head straight up and suddenly appeared a thin red line. If you don't look carefully, you can't see it clearly. Even the daimyo didn't notice it. But people with Mifune's strength can really see it clearly. But he still didn't quite understand how this thing was emitted and what was its use. Seeing him doubtful, Orochimaru laughed softly and then whispered, "You will know what this red line does in a while, and its effect can be much greater than you think." He suddenly realized that Gyokyo would not do meaningless things. At this moment, he was more curious about how you use this magical red line. This is not a red line, but the most basic infrared laser, even some infrared rays that children have played with, but Gyokyo has lengthened it and increased its power a lot. It can be emitted thousands of meters at a time and has very strong practicality. It is no longer a toy, but a military facility. Although things are not uncommon, they are unique in the ninja world. The soldiers of the Iron Country in the distance were waiting to rest there, hiding themselves very well. Suddenly, someone next to them said something strange. "Why do you suddenly have a strange red dot on your body?" The other person saw that it was indeed the case and hurriedly tried to swat it off, thinking it was some strange bug. But he didn't expect that this thing would stick to his body all the time, and he couldn't swat it off, no matter how hard he slapped it. This was just a trick played by Takashi. He could clearly see the movements of those soldiers. Then he looked at the target in the distance and suddenly fired a shot, bang, hitting the bullseye. But the daimyo didn't know what happened at this time because it was too far away and the people in the distance hadn't come back to report. He absolutely didn't believe that Takashi could shoot at such a long distance. After a while, they had found the target they had just focused on. The daimyo asked everyone to come closer and said with some pride, "Tell me, what was the shooting situation just now?" "It just hit the place we arranged before, accurately without any deviation." His first reaction was that he thought he had heard it wrong. How could there be such an outrageous thing? It was so far away, and it was simply beyond the reach of human strength. Chapter 88, Honorary Nobles, start capturing the eight-tailed fox. Daimyo felt a gust of wind passing through him just now, and the others had disappeared completely before they felt it. Looking at the people around him who came to report, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. However, a trace of stubbornness in his heart still made him refuse to admit this fact. "I want to go and see it myself, you follow me behind." After a while, he arrived at the location, and then he saw that the others were not lying, but were really doing it. He looked at Takashi curiously. "How did you do it just now?" This is actually very simple. I added a sighting device to the monitoring. It is the protruding part under the gun, which can shoot a red light from a long distance. It can assist in aiming, and the position can also be determined based on this red dot. It is very useful. Mifune nodded. As expected, the strange thing was indeed caused by the strange red light, but he did not expect Takashi to be able to research this method. He hurriedly stepped forward and said, "If we can use this weapon skillfully, it will play a very important role in the battle." And Dada also saw this point. If the enemy can be completely sniped and killed from such a distance, if there are more, wouldn't it be even more invincible? Very good. I apologize for my arrogance before. I didn't expect your ideas to exceed my imagination. Hearing him say this, Mifune immediately said, "Your Excellency just didn't understand the power of this gun. In the future, Mr. Takashi will definitely create more powerful weapons, and maybe even create the national weapon of our Iron country." In response, the daimyo just nodded, with a barely perceptible gleam in his eyes. Then he said happily, "I know that, although you are not from our Iron country, you have made such a great contribution to us. If I don't give you something, I'm afraid it will be difficult for the people below to convince you. Tell me, what do you want?" Mifune winked at Takashi, meaning that if you have something, you can ask for it quickly. While the Lord is in a good mood now, he can satisfy you with almost anything you want. But Takashi didn't care about this. He really didn't want anything. The daimyo saw that he was a little hesitant and said with a big hand, "If you don't mind, how about I grant you a noble position? If you make any mistakes one day, you can come to me for asylum. I will definitely protect you, and your descendants can also inherit the title in the future. What do you think?" Several people in the back hurried forward and said, "Sir, don't do that. There has never been such a precedent. You have to know that they don't know much about Takashi now. They don't know whether he has a gap or not, but they trust him so much. This is something that has never happened before. But at this moment, the daimyo has determined that he must do this. At least this is the only way he can win over this guy now. If it's money, this guy has already made a lot in their country. If it's women, it's even more unrealistic." When Takashi heard this, he seemed to suddenly think of something and whispered, "Thank you, Your Majesty, but I have a small request. Please meet it." Mifune quickly winked at Takashi, which clearly meant that this reward was enough, and he must not ask for more. But the daimyo is in a very good mood now. "You can say it." But Takashi looked at other people. The daimyo understood what he meant in a second. "Get out of the way. I have something to say to Takashi." The others were about to speak, but were stopped by his gaze, so they had to move aside in shame. After everyone else had walked away, the daimyo spoke slowly. "You can say whatever you want." Takashi took a deep breath and said solemnly, "I hope that the Iron Country can be completely independent of the 5 major countries. At least if someone wants to hold the Shadowless Conference in the Iron Country in the future, I hope that the Iron Country can refuse and continue to be a neutral country." This strange request made the daimyo frown. So far, they have been following this policy. Even if Takashi didn't say it, they would continue to implement it. They didn't quite understand what these words meant. But since they have always been adhering to this method, it doesn't matter if they agree now. On the contrary, they can do a favor. Why not? "Okay, I agree to your request, but you have to respond to my gift. You must polish this weapon to the best. I need to see an invincible sniper team." Takashi is 100% sure of this. Even if he doesn't say so, he will do it. After all, the reputation of a weapon dealer is the most important. Without reputation, everything else is empty talk. The two reached a very tacit agreement. On this side, Takashi's progress is in full swing, and he has also reached such an inexplicable agreement with the Iron Country. On the other side, Uchiha and his team are also making progress. At this time, Sasuke and his elder brother have come to the place where the Eight Tails is, and the purpose of their trip is naturally the Eight Tails Jinchuriki. And the 3 people accompanying this time are Sasuke, Same and Uchiha. There is basically no possibility of failure for the 3 of them. Sasuke is a little nervous about this, because this is his first time to participate in the process of helping the hunters. Of course, this means that this is his first time as the main force. In the past, he was responsible for helping or some unimportant positions on the side, but this time he was directly sent to the team. That means he has to play his due role this time and show its value. This made him a little nervous, but he still had to face this fact. As the elder brother, he could see Sasuke's inner uneasiness at a glance. Don't worry too much. The three of us are more than enough to hunt an 8-tailed beast. When he spoke, he also glanced at Kisame. Even if he hunted alone, he might succeed, not to mention the two of them, although Sasuke has not opened the main Juki Sharingan. But this did not hinder his brother's superb qualifications. The people of the Uchiha clan were still quite confident in their strength. After approaching, they killed the two ninjas from the hidden cloud village waiting here, and then sneaked in. However, they also underestimated the power of being a Jinchuriki. Killer Bee can be said to be one of the best people who have merged with Jinchuriki so far. He can perfectly control the power of the tailed beast. Even if other people get close, they may not be his opponents. He jumped directly out of his house, turned dozens of circles in the sky, and then landed beautifully. The three of them looked at this strange guy and did not take any action for a while. Then they saw him take out a pen and a booklet from his pocket and started writing something. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. The immortal duo sets out. After a moment, he closed the notebook and smiled confidently at them. Thanks to you bastards, I was able to write such a good poem, so there is no need to waste words. Then, without saying anything, he threw all the knives on his back into the air, clamped them with various parts of his body, and made a very weird posture. However, in their eyes, this action was just a pretense. Whether he had real skills or not would be revealed after another fight. Seeing that the three people did not have the posture to attack, Kirabi simply took the initiative and threw all the knives out at once, and then rushed towards the few people at a high speed. When attacking, he could also fully exert the knives waving in the air. Even Kisame couldn't help but look up to this move. In his opinion, this kind of physical skill was already very advanced. After Sasuke opened his Sharingan, he still couldn't keep up with Killer Bee's speed. In a blink of an eye, he was hit by 3 swords and then another. At this time, Uchiha Itachi didn't mean to let him withdraw. He could never grow up without experiencing danger, so he planned to let Sasuke see some blood here, so that he could see what it meant to be someone better than you. He was born with high expectations but low skills, and thought he was the best in the world all day long. However, Killer Bee's swordsmanship was indeed first class. That is, the main Gekaiu could only see almost clearly, and it couldn't be much better. It was too much, and it was impossible to make a correct prediction for a while, and this was also Killer Bee's way of confusing the enemy's attack. After fighting for a few minutes, Killer Bee also found the problem. Except for the younger one, the attacks of the remaining 2 people were not painful at all. There were only 2 scratches on the face from the sword energy, and there was no substantial damage at all. Seeing this situation, he directly released his tailed beast chakra. A layer of red chakra coat directly wrapped around his body, and several tails appeared behind him. Then at this moment, his speed directly soared more than doubled, and the speed of attack became more fierce, and Sasuke could not bear it at all. At this time, Killer Bee also intended to eliminate the weak ones first, and then seize the time to deal with the 2 powerful guys. A fake move directly flashed the eyes of the 2, and then holding all the blades, he ran towards Sasuke. At this moment, Sasuke's pupils dilated, and he was a little at a loss. He wanted to escape, but found that his speed was not worth mentioning at all. Uchiha Itachi also saw that this teaching task had basically been achieved. If it continued like this, his brother would probably be seriously injured, or even in danger of life. Silica Gel suddenly released a huge water-shaped shark from behind. Water escape, big dragon bullet technique. Killer Bee turned around in an instant and threw out 3 sharp knives to break the shark, but this little time also gave Uchiha Itachi a chance. A great fireball technique blocked his route, and then he revealed his original gyro muscle, stretched it out and gently slashed it across Killer Bee's body. In an instant, his tail beast coat was directly absorbed, and he was stunned at this moment. He had never seen such a ninjutsu, or more precisely, he had never seen such a weapon. This thing was actually a living thing, and it could also devour chakra. For a moment, he felt a dangerous aura gradually approaching him. If this continued, this thing could absorb all of his tail beast chakra, and it was afraid that before he could truly transform into a tail beast, it would absorb all of his chakra. Things suddenly became tricky, and this was just the beginning. The battle did not last very long. Less than an hour later, before Killer Bee could transform into the 8-tailed beast, he was completely defeated, and the others also showed their skills. Kisame was a little embarrassed, but generally speaking, it was just some superficial injuries, nothing serious. At this moment, Sasuke also saw the gap between himself and them, and his mentality had a very long-term advancement. He realized that he still had a long way to go, and his eyes became more resolute. Uchiha Itachi was also very happy to see his brother have this mentality, but he was not a person who was good at speaking. Such things were deeply buried in his heart. Carrying the 8-tailed beast, he left with the rising sun, and when this matter was discovered, they had already disappeared without a trace. Deidara and Afeni were recovering from their injuries at this time. Afeni was actually not in any serious trouble. The main reason was that Deidara was seriously injured by Takashi's ability twice. If he was not treated and recovered in time, he would probably be left with injuries that were difficult to recover. By that time, the gap with the college would probably fall further and further, and he might even drag others down when performing the mission. So it was better to hide and recover from the injuries, and he was not lacking in combat power, and others were also working hard. However, unlike those who have worked hard to contribute to the Akatsuki organization, two of them have very clear styles, and their mentality is incompatible with others. They were forced to participate here, not for ideals, but for more realistic things. That is the immortal duo composed of Kakuzu and Hidden. Otherwise, it can be said that the two people teaming up can be said to be a match made in heaven. Because before Hidden came, none of the guys who teamed up with Kakuzu were alive, and all of them were dead. At this time, the two had sneaked into the territory of the Land of Fire, wanting to seize the opportunity to capture the Ninetales. But what he didn't know was that the celebrity was not in Konoha village at all, but had gone to another place to practice. Unless they can also find the Toad Sage, otherwise they will never find out where the celebrity is. But after they came here, they had another idea. To be precise, Kakuzu had another idea. Hidden looked at the direction the two were heading, not to Konoha village, and asked impatiently, "Where are we going? This road can't get to Konoha village." And Kakuzu just said lightly, "Although this road doesn't lead to Konoha village, it leads to an equally glorious place. A head worth 30 million is waiting for us to take. This is a very valuable business. We just need to kill it on the way, and make as much money as we want." As for Kakuzu's extremely money-loving character, Hidden also expressed his incomprehension. It is obvious that he will hardly die if nothing unexpected happens, and he has nothing to enjoy, but he loves money very much. I don't know why, even after the death of the first Hokage, he is still alive. However, he also knows that his companion can do anything for money, and it is impossible to stop him from making money. He can only nag. Chapter 90 Killing Land. The two walked along the road ahead and saw a temple in front of them. There were several monks sweeping the floor outside the door. Fidon, who hadn't seen a living person for a long time, suddenly became excited. He rushed forward and grabbed their faces and asked excitedly, "Do you want to believe in the god of writing with me? If you believe in the evil god together, you will get endless benefits and he will grant you immortality." Several monks looked at this kid and thought he was crazy. He came to the temple to promote the evil god theory. Several monks waved their hands impatiently. "This is an important place in the temple. If you don't have anything to do, please leave. This is not a place to burn incense and worship Buddha. Outsiders are not welcome." Seeing that the master he believed in was not welcomed, Fidon's face suddenly turned cold. "If you don't believe in the evil god, then there is nothing I can do. I can only ask you to go to another world to see how powerful the god is." Suddenly, a red sickle with 3 sharp blades appeared from behind. It swung around everyone, like a god of death wandering in hell, reaping the lives of monks. After killing a few of them, it flew a distance and laughed wildly. Ha ha ha, you deserve it. This is a consequence of looking down on the evil god. I wonder who dares not to believe in the evil god. The voice outside the door was very loud, and soon other people were attracted to the 4th middle school. They were monks guarding the temple with sticks in their hands. As one of the 12 guardian ninjas, the temple of Delu must not have only a few monks who clean up, but also many monks with good fighting power. They basically don't know any chakra, but they have very strong bodies and physical skills, and they are also blessed by Buddhism, so they can use strength that is not inferior to other jonin. However, people of their strength are obviously not enough in front of the immortal duo. You can beat me as much as you want, and I lose if you die. Facing these attacks, Fei Yidwen kept swinging the red sickle in his hand, as long as he could break their bodies a little, and then he picked up a black shoulder vertebra, and stabbed his body directly. One monk after another fell to the ground, and they didn't even know the cause of death. However, there was no fear on their faces, but extreme anger. They absolutely could not tolerate such provocative behavior. However, seeing this situation, someone finally saw it, and said to the people behind, "Go and invite Lord Delu. He is still in retreat, but he can't care about these now. Go and invite him out. Only he can deal with these two guys. If it's too late, I'm afraid our entire temple will be buried here." After saying this, the others did not dare to delay, and quickly sent a person with nimble legs and feet to Delu's retreat. The retreat place is in the most remote and deep place of this place. Any sound outside can't be heard here. In the past, if someone was in retreat here, unless the person inside took the initiative to come out, outsiders could not disturb them. This is the most basic rule. But this was not the time to talk about these things. The door was pushed open, and Delu, who was practicing Zen, was also stunned. This had never happened before. Seeing the disciples who came here panting, and full of panic on their faces, he frowned and asked immediately, "What happened? Tell me slowly." Two guys wearing red scarlet cloud clothes came to the main gate of the temple in front. They are very powerful. They are slaughtering people in our temple. They are not dead at all. They will use strange means to kill our monks. I'm afraid that no one can deal with them except you. After hearing his description, Delu's heart sank. This description is not clear to ordinary people, but people of their level are very clear. Isn't this someone from Akatsuki? However, it is said that their group is mainly to capture the Jinkriki in the 5 villages. He has no feud with these people. Why did he come here? Delu would never think that it was because his head was too valuable that he provoked them. But this was not the time to think about these things. He picked up the Zen stick placed aside and followed him to the gate. At this time, he was also extremely anxious. If he delayed for a moment, someone might lose his life. As a powerful person who inherited the will of fire, he would never allow such a thing to happen. Even if he died, he would protect this place. When he came to the front, he looked at the corpses on the ground. There were only 2 or 3 people who could breathe alive. It was obviously a temple for saving all living beings, but now it has become a hell of fire. The instigator in front of him looked at Delu very easily. Seeing the target person appear, Kakuzu's eyes lit up. That person was not a powerful guardian ninja at all. It was obviously a walking box of 30 million. Since you came out, then you will die. Delu took a fighting stance and held the Zen stick across his chest. I will never let the 2 of you do whatever you want in my temple. Then a huge golden light was released from behind him, and a phantom of Shura God and Buddha appeared behind him. Then a red aura condensed around him, and these auras condensed into huge fists one after another, attacking the 2. He threw dozens of punches in the face, and the 2 did not dodge at all, and all of them were taken. I thought I could solve them like this, but a moment later, the 2 of them got up unscathed. Fiden cursed. It hurts, you bastard. I have decided not to give you the chance to believe in the evil god. I will kill you directly. Seeing that his attack was ineffective against the 2, his heart sank to the bottom. It seemed that he really couldn't escape this disaster today. But what about that? No matter what, he would not give in at all. However, sometimes some things are not the gap in strength that can be changed by persistence, nor can faith make up for the gap. Not everyone is the protagonist and has such a heaven-defying luck. Angle wiped his hands, wiped the blood on his body, carried his 30 million, and walked towards the exchange place. Carrying a large box of money, for some reason, his waist didn't hurt anymore, his legs didn't feel sore anymore, and he had the strength to walk. When they were gone, there was a monk in the pile of corpses in the temple who was holding his body, covering the blood hole on his chest that was bleeding continuously, and struggled to get out of the door, and rushed to the direction of Konoha. Although pretending to be dead was a bit shameful, there was no need to think too much under the circumstances. The two had to be left in the line of fire, otherwise these two evildoers would kill more people. His eyes were clearly disappointed, but his willpower was holding him up. He rushed to Konoha village, and then he was exhausted. When he saw the two people guarding the gate, he passed out with darkness in front of his eyes. Chapter 91. The key is that the Jinchuriki is not in the village now. After seeing this situation, they immediately sent them to the medical room of Muai. Chushin and Zioing were treating the others inside. They were also stunned to see such a strange patient with a bald head and wearing monk's robes. It was the first time that Zioing saw a guy dressed like this and asked curiously, "Who is this guy? Why is he so seriously injured?" It was Gangziti who sent this person here. He also frowned and shook his head. "I don't know, but he looks like someone from the temple." With such a serious injury, the two of them had no choice but to ask for help from Lady Tsunade. It may also be that this guy is really not destined to die. Tsunade did not go out to gamble or drink at this time and is now in a very sober state. However, even after seeing the guy's injuries, he felt that there was little hope for treatment, but he still had to try. A green light entered the wound, and the blood gradually stopped slowly, and it began to heal slowly. After a while, the monk finally woke up. Seeing the head in front of him on the Konoha emblem, he realized that he was rescued by them. However, he knew his physical condition best, and he held on to his body and said to everyone, "Don't waste your energy on me. My current injury can't be cured, but I have something important to tell you. Two guys wearing black-red cloud clothes have sneaked into our fire country and killed Master Lu, the abbot of our temple. Their goal is very likely to be Konoha village. You must be careful." It was this incident that made him come to Konoha village with his last breath. After telling this matter, he let go of his last breath and completely left the world. Tsunade knew that this matter must be reported and said immediately, "You two are here now. I will go find the third generation Hokage. This matter is of great importance." However, she also knew that Jiraiya took Naruto away to practice. Although she knew that they would definitely not be able to catch the Jinchuriki this time, if nothing unexpected happened, they could not bear the two powerful families making a big fuss in the territory of the fire country. Therefore, this matter must be reported, and decisions must be made in advance to prevent their arrival. But the most important thing now is that we don't know where these two people come from, what kind of strength and ability they have. These unknown things will make a person feel instinctive fear. After a while, when he came to the Hokage's office, the third Hokage heard about this and frowned tightly. "I didn't expect them to act so quickly. In the blink of an eye, they are about to come to our Konoha. It seems that the people from other villages who should have helped have already suffered from the murderous hands, but they haven't made it public yet." At this moment, the two of them fell into silence and then hurriedly checked who in the village had time to stop them. As a result, after looking around, in addition to Gao Xiao, there was only Asuma's team. The third Hokage didn't know what would happen next, but all this might be the arrangement of fate after all. They couldn't run away, and their two teams would eventually confront each other. But this time the third Hokage was more careful and planned to let Tsunade go with him. When Asuma arrived here, he heard that his friend was killed, and he was furious. You know, they were both guardian ninjas and had a very deep friendship. At this moment, the desire to avenge his friend and the hatred for the Akatsuki organization made him a little furious. He took on this task without hesitation and called his team together. After he went out, it was the first time that Shikamaru saw his teacher so angry, and he knew that something terrible must have happened. Although he was usually afraid of trouble, his mind was very smart, and he knew that something bad must have happened. Then Asuma said seriously, "Carry out an emergency mission. Now 2 people from the Akatsuki organization have sneaked into our fire country and killed Master Jilo of the temple. We have to go to intercept them and get rid of them in one fell swoop. After hearing this, Shikamaru suddenly remembered the strange Jinchuriki he met during the second Chujin exam. In his opinion, that woman was very troublesome because she was too nagging. And it was precisely because of these reasons Shikamaru acted very cold, but the more he did so, the more Feng nagged. And he accidentally mentioned that they were attacked, and the place where they were attacked was between Konoha village and Send village. I don't know if it was those 2 guys, and I heard that one of them would not die at all, which is very strange, and it is said that you can't be hurt by one of the guys with a sickle, otherwise something terrible will happen. However, because Feng has not seen how Feelin's evil magic is used, he can only tell them that it is terrible, and all the things are said by Takashi, asking them to be careful. As for this kind of thing, Shikamaru may not think it is such a coincidence, but for this reason he went home and took all his detonating tags with him in case of emergency. Asuma is too familiar with the place where his friend is because he has been there many times. After coming here before, he felt that the blessing of Buddhism was very comfortable, as if all the troubles in the world were cleared. But after coming here again, it has become a purgatory on earth, with corpses everywhere and blood all over the sky. He was so angry that he was shaking all over. Seeing the footsteps of the 2 people and the bloodstains left along the way, he immediately knew the direction they were heading. Tsunade comforted him from the side. Calm down. If you fight in this state, it will be very dangerous. Asuma was already furious at this moment. I'm very calm now, very calm. Kakuzu and Hidden were exchanging money at the exchange office at this time. The moment he got the money, he seemed to be sublimated. Hidden was outside, holding a dogtail grass in his mouth. He was not interested in money, but only in preaching. He had already dedicated everything to the evil god, so what was the use of asking for money? Just when he was bored, a Kune suddenly flew over. He quickly dodged it, but the detonating tag on it suddenly exploded, making him stagger. He was so angry that he shouted, "Who the hell is it? Come out." What was waiting for him were more detonating tags and shurikens, which also hit him at a very high frequency. After the continuous explosions, Kakuzu was also attracted and looked at what was happening here curiously. When he saw that the person outside the house was actually a wanted person of great value, he was immediately happy. It seems that I have good fortune today. Asuma suddenly appeared at this moment. I think you have good luck in death. Chapter 92 Good Materials for Experiments. After Shikamaru saw the outfits of the 2 people in front of him, he immediately thought of the appearance of the 2 guys that Feng had described before. Although his memory was a bit vague, the appearance of the 2 was basically the same. In particular, one of the guys had a huge red sickle on his back, which was simply a symbolic decoration. Seeing Feiden's appearance, he was 100% sure. Can't be attacked by the sickle. What does this mean? But in this case, he decided to believe Feng's statement. Tell others quickly. Everyone, pay attention. Don't be attacked by that red sickle. Otherwise it is very likely that something terrible will happen. Even a scratch will not work. Choji heard this and asked in confusion. Terrible things? How terrible can it be? Shikamaru said solemnly. It is very likely to die. After hearing this, the eyes of the others all condensed. This was not a joke. But Feiden in front of him also cast a curious look. Could it be that this kid knew him, or was he also a believer of the evil god? Otherwise, how could he know his secrets? He suddenly said to Shikamaru, I think you have the potential to believe in the evil god. If you join us, I can spare your life. They just treated this as bullshit. However, this kind of attack is very disadvantageous to Tsunade because it is 100% pure attack. Although it is powerful, it is difficult not to be injured by this long-range attack. Especially the red sickle of Hidden has a long steel rope behind it, which makes his attack even more strange and unpredictable. The 3-stage sickle can also enhance the attack range. If you are not careful, you may get scratched. If you can't even get these scratches, then the level of caution in the battle must be raised a lot. But just when they were hesitating about how to proceed, Hidden and Kakuzu didn't have so much time to wait for them. Especially Hidden, after being attacked just now, He was very upset. He always killed people and attacked secretly, and no one attacked him secretly. Kakuzu, don't interfere. I want to kill them both myself. Kakuzu was also happy to hear this and said calmly, then hurry up, we are in a hurry. By the way, why didn't the Ninetales Jinchuriki come over to Konoha? Asuma sneered. He is in a place you will never find. Very safe. Give up. Two bastards. After hearing his words, Kakuzu felt that he might have come here in vain. However, looking at the money box beside him, he suddenly felt that it was not in vain. The red sickle was thrown out of the attack range and whistled towards them. The simple attack was seen through by them and easily dodged, but the subsequent attack gave them a headache. Because there was a steel rope, the attack of the red sickle was very flexible, biting their actions like a vicious venomous snake. Because Shikamaru's words just now made them feel scared, they didn't dare to confront it head on at this moment, for fear that the red sickle would scratch their skin and perform some strange ninjutsu to their disadvantage. It's not their fault, because the evil god is too rare, and many people have never heard of it. Seeing that they were so cautious and didn't fight with me, and they dodged so flexibly, Fiduen was a little anxious for a while. When he fought with others, in addition to his own strong strength, he relied on his evil magic, which others didn't know. So many times he could catch the other party off guard, not because he was so powerful, but because others didn't understand this technology. Now once others are prepared, this kind of attack will be very bad. There was a constant stalemate between the few people, and Fiduen didn't have any other means of long-range attack. Instead, he was constantly consumed by the shuriken, detonating tags and other things they invested in. He really won't die, but the conditions for death are more harsh. And from the perspective behind, this point can also be seen. It seems that it is not a very simple thing to take down these guys from Konoha, and he didn't plan to continue playing house with these people. He quickly killed them and quickly retreated after exchanging money. Anyway, the Ninetales helpers are not here now, and they can't find them. Staying here is just a waste of time. At this time, it is better to go out and do a few more orders. It is better to save more money from other businesses than anything else. So he didn't care what he had just agreed with Fiduen, and he went straight to the action. Seeing him stand up, Fiduen was a little unhappy. Kakuzu, didn't you promise me that these guys are my prey? He glanced at Fiduen after hearing that. Can you blame me for this? If you are not so useless, why would I take action? I have a hunch that the Jinchuriki must not be in the village now. It is just a waste of time for us to stay here. We can kill them and exchange them for money. And there is actually a descendant of the first generation of Hokage among them. It seems that I have really become rich this time. I remember that I fought with the first generation of Hokage in the past. He knew very well what kind of master his grandfather was. If the man in front of him wanted to fight with the first generation of Hokage, he would probably not be able to get through even one move, and would be directly slapped on the ground. Naturally, he was disdainful of what he said. Kakuzu felt very unhappy with her expression. He was telling the truth, but why did no one believe him? So he fixed his eyes on Tsunade, intending to take down this most valuable guy first. As for the others, he would let Hidden deal with them first. Suddenly, he took off his clothes, and countless silk threads were sewn on his body, like a rag doll. But in a moment, these thoughts sewn on his body, like countless virgins suddenly came to life, waving on his body, looking very disgusting. His hands suddenly stretched out and swept towards them, but this attack was not effective for them, and they were easily dodged. However, their current situation was that there were wolves in front and tigers behind. If they could dodge this attack, it would be difficult to dodge the other attack. Both of them could stretch their bodies to attack from a distance. The two of them staggered and attacked back and forth like a pair of scissors, leaving them with nowhere to hide. With the addition of angles, the pressure on the few people increased a lot. While dodging, they even had the idea of fighting to the death. Since Tsunade was the one being taken special care of, the two's attacks were basically all directed towards her. Suddenly, the distance calculation was a little off, and the red sickle was about to touch her skin. Hidden's face was filled with ecstasy, and then the sound of metal colliding was heard. Takashi stopped in front of her, looking at Hidden with a playful look on his face. This was excellent experimental material. Chapter 93 Takeaway. He was full of confidence and wanted to directly attack it in front of everyone to give them some shock and see if they dared to disrespect the evil god. However, after the sickle was launched, he was stunned by the sound. It was obviously a mortal body. How could it be possible to hear such a crisp metallic sound when it was attacked? He looked closely, and his heart trembled. If there was anyone in Konoha who could scare him now, it might be only Takashi. Damn, how come I can run into you everywhere? Why do you always haunt me? Takashi didn't take his scolding seriously. In his eyes, there was only Fiden's immortal body. This was simply the best material for their training of firearms. Shooting intensity, shooting accuracy and other conditions. Only with it could they calculate the most accurate data. Hehe, since you came to me yourself, you can't blame me. He has already thought about how to torture this guy. For this inhuman creature, it shouldn't be a big problem to directly stuff it into the system space. Anyway, as long as he is not starved to death, there should be no other big problems. Kakuzu was also shocked when he saw Takashi. The memory of the last battle was still vivid in his mind, because this guy really caused them too much trouble, so the impression was simply profound, and it couldn't be more profound. However, the last time they fought, they did not use their true strength, so he still had a little confidence in his heart. If he released all his strength, he might not be defeated by this guy. So he asked Fiden to get serious quickly and not to be careless, because the guy they were facing was not a player they could win by being careless. Tsunade was startled by the attack just now and accidentally sat on the ground, and Takashi's figure blocked her tightly in front of her, turned around and pulled her up. Are you okay? Tsunade felt a little embarrassed when he saw the look she had just seen. Her face was slightly red, and she whispered 2 words. Thank you. Takashi was immediately shocked. Wow, it turns out that in addition to borrowing money, there are 2 words that can make her say thank you. Tsunade looked at him with a strange look and said with some shame and anger, "What's that look in your eyes? Is it strange for me to say thank you? No, I guess." After saying that, he fixed his eyes on the 2 people in front of him. You bullied our Konoha's flower and you want to run away. Hand over the money. No, hand over your life. Just now, I accidentally told the truth. Although the money was exchanged for the sacrifice of Dilu, it must be taken back. Otherwise, people will not be able to sleep well in the underground. Hearing the ugly nickname given by Takashi, Tsunade's face instantly turned red with anger. The others beside her wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to laugh. After all, there was a generation difference between them. In the whole Konoha village, I'm afraid that only Takashi dared to joke with the master like this. If Jiraiya said that, he would probably be punched away by her. The reason why Takashi dared to say that was mainly because others couldn't catch up with him. Hiden and Kaku saw it. After Takashi came, he actually didn't take them seriously, and he became even more angry. I don't believe you can be so powerful that you can beat the 2 of us without getting hurt. As he spoke, he burst out with all his strength. The 3 masks behind him suddenly came to life. According to the black silk threads on their bodies, they formed several human-shaped monsters, which looked very ferocious and terrifying. When Shoji saw this thing, he exclaimed, "Is this guy also a puppeteer?" Takashi said disdainfully, "Don't insult puppeteers. They are at least half artists. This guy is a complete monster." This was said without any sense of perspective. This kind of person didn't know what kind of ninjutsu he practiced. He only knew that he was from the same village as Nanao. One of the puppets wearing a mask suddenly opened his mouth and spewed out a huge fire. The other puppet opened his mouth and spewed out a hurricane. The only person in Konoha who could use 2 different attributes at the same time was the Hokage. And for this kind of attack, in Takashi's eyes, it couldn't be any slower. The only thing about this attack is that it lasts for a long time and can sweep across. If someone attacks on a large scale, the lethality of this move is still considerable. But for this guy, Takashi thinks that Fiden is more dangerous. After all, this guy can kill his family members instantly, as long as he draws a formation after scratching them. The Sharingan sword in his hand appeared, flashing in the sky and on the ground at an incredibly fast speed. The speed was so fast that he couldn't keep up with it. The steel rope of the sickle in his hand was also in a mess, and he didn't know which angle to attack from. The skill that he was most proud of in the past has become a burden at this moment because the steel rope in his hand is in a mess, which affects the rhythm of his attack. Just when he was fighting nervously, Takashi had come behind him, and Fidwen also took out a black steel drill in his hand and stabbed it in the direction of Takashi's attack. But it was useless. Just like before, he only remembered a very harsh sound of metal collision, and nothing else happened. Takashi very naturally used the Shienzangan sword to slide upwards, and a very gorgeous flash appeared. Then he hit his head and split into two parts with his body in the sky. He grabbed the long hair, and Fidwen grimaced in pain, and kept calling for help from Kakuzu. "You bastard, evil god will definitely not let you go, and Kakuzu, come and save me, I can't deal with this guy." On the other hand, the angle battle was also more difficult, because after all, he was fighting against the former Konoha Sannin, and one of the 12 guardian ninjas, and it was very difficult to completely kill him. Seeing this situation, he just gritted his teeth. Damn, how could it become like this? Obviously everything was going well, but until it happened, everything changed. At this moment, he wanted to run, but his self-esteem would not allow it. The dignity of a strong man is not so easy to trample on. After thinking about it, he decided to fight them to the end. But it's still the same reason. Fighting requires strength, and it's useless to rely on ruthlessness alone. Suddenly he released all his restraints, and suddenly became extremely agile. The black threads in his body suddenly multiplied, forming a huge black loop, clearing everything around it. That appearance looked extremely exaggerated, and even the horns made a muffled sound. "This is my true appearance. You should be grateful to see me like this. No one can survive if they see me like this." Chapter 94, Bringing Back Research. After seeing Kakuzu in this form, everyone else was stunned, because this form was beyond their cognition. How could a human suddenly become such a monster? However, Takashi was still very calm at this time. It was easier for the college to fight him when he turned into this mode, because he was more cumbersome in this situation. Although he had a stronger lethality, he was just a fixed live target. If it was a firepower battle, he would not be afraid of anyone, and when he came back, he specially put a Barrett sniper rifle in his backpack. If you want to snipe him, he is not afraid. At this moment, Fidwen's body fell straight to the ground. Without waiting for him to react, Takashi held Fidwen's head in one hand and shook it left and right in front of Kakuzu. And this scene also made Choji and Shikamaru feel a little disgusted. No wonder they said before that they couldn't be touched by this guy. This thing is really a bit strange. It can continue to talk after the head is chopped off. But this guy didn't leave much blood after the head was chopped off, but he chattered more. Seeing that Fidwen was in Takashi's hands, he was a little hesitant. After all, this was his companion. If he was to be eliminated along with him, it would not be good. He hesitated for a moment, but in a flash, he completely forgot about it. If he did not take action at this moment, I'm afraid that both of them would stay here, so it would be better to let one of them live, and then recruit new people. Although it feels very comfortable to team up with him, it would be a pity if he died, but there is no way to do it. After all, there must be a replacement. Seeing that there was no one left behind, Fidwen was also angry and cursed. "You conscienceless guy, you bastard, do you want to kill me too?" Facing his boring scolding, Angle did not take it seriously at all, but just accumulated power on his own, intending to eliminate them together. The three black lines completely merged with his body, and the three masks emitted three different attributes, and then merged together, to form an extremely huge energy. Suddenly, the energy suddenly erupted towards them, and several people quickly dodged. Not only that, the speed was fast and the power was strong. The energy contained in it could blow them to pieces. Asuma was a little surprised. No wonder this guy could kill Delu, who had never protected Shinobi 12. He was really strong. But Takashi didn't dodge just now. Instead, he flashed into the sky, set up the thunder gun, aimed at one of his masks, fired a shot, and with a spurt, a mask was directly smashed to pieces by this powerful force. He grinned. This kind of thing really has the same effect on ninjas. They are also mortals, and they will still be injured if they are cut by a knife. After all, not everyone is a Shirama Senju and Uchiha Madara. And just now, 9 degrees didn't see clearly what number Takashi used, and didn't even see him make a seal, but took out a strange thing. Lightning flashed and smashed his mask directly. He asked in shock, "What on earth is that thing of yours?" Takashi just smiled faintly. "Kill your thing." Then another shot blew up another mask, and then these masks actually reunited from the shattered state, but they still had cracks on them. Takashi was strong. It seemed that this thing was still less useful for ninjas who were too powerful, at least it was not very useful for such monsters. But he believed that, if most ninjas hit his vitals with this shot, they would never get up again. Then he put away his playful heart, and planned to seriously get rid of this guy, and have fewer worries. After all, compared to Hidden, Kakuzu was too unstable, so it was better to kill him, as soon as possible. The others were not idle at this time. Shikamaru wanted to control it with the shadow control technique, but he forgot the difference in strength between the two people. This kind of power ninjutsu could not control Kakuzu at all. Takashi used the Asakani no Magatama, and in a blink of an eye, 3 masks were directly shattered, and a hole was instantly punched in his body by the light flying down from above. After the shattering, he immediately used the storm kick to split it into several pieces, and his body was torn into pieces. But even so, he did not die. Instead, he struggled to get up and continue fighting. But not to mention Takashi, no one else would give him such a chance. He quickly stepped forward to finish him off, and killed him directly. Takashi was not interested in attacking a dying man, which was not in line with his character. Instead, he walked towards Fiden's body. He wanted to take this body back to Orochimaru for a good study. Anyway, when that guy was pursuing inventions, the thing he was most interested in was the art of longevity. And this guy believed in evil gods. I don't know what kind of power he had, but he could actually gain a very strong vitality. If nothing unexpected happened, this kind of thing should be very much in line with Orochimaru's appetite. No matter who you interact with, you need to have this mentality. You need to know what the other person likes, and try to win him over. Otherwise, cooperation based on preferences and personality alone will definitely not last long. Takashi quickly collected it, while no one was paying attention. Others only noticed it at this time, and suddenly asked, when they saw nothing, "Where is Fiden?" Takashi just said indifferently, "I don't know. Maybe we were not serious enough in the fight just now, so that immortal guy ran away. I was just carrying his head around, and I accidentally threw it out during the fight just now." The others felt a little sorry when they heard it. After all, if they could get rid of 2 members of Akatsuki in one go, it would be a major blow to their organization. After that, the others also breathed a sigh of relief. After all, facing such a guy, the pressure was too strong. And Tsunade suddenly asked, "What mission did you go on again? Why haven't I seen you recently? This is not in line with your character. As the first madman to accept a mission in Konoha, it is not your style to be so lazy." However, Takashi did not explain in too much detail, but just said lightly that he went on a long-term mission and happened to come back to meet them this time. In fact, it was indeed by chance that, after leaving the Iron Kingdom, he went straight back to Konoha with a large sum of money, intending to go back to open the storage grid, improve the attributes, and also have a good rest. After all, although physical strength can be unlimited, the spirit is not unlimited. No matter what, he is now a human being. If he is too tense, his spirit will collapse. Chapter 95, The Hidden Mist Village. Since he returned quickly to report, Takashi did not embezzle the money. Although he needed money now, he had not yet reached the point where he needed to borrow money from the dead. Moreover, this little money would not have much impact on him. On the contrary, it would lower his image, which was too unnecessary. Since the third Hokage heard that they had a big battle after returning, it was expected, but he did not expect Takashi to be involved in it, which made him a little surprised. However, when they heard that one of the Akatsuki actually ran away due to an accident, they were a little surprised. They did not expect that Takashi would also make mistakes. However, the third Hokage felt that this was more normal, because even the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze had made mistakes. After all, they are all human beings, not gods. It is normal to walk by the river and get your shoes wet. Mistakes are a very normal situation. Takashi returned home and checked the situation in the system. He found that Fiden was still alive in it, but at this moment he was trembling with fear by the three tails and the illusion evil spirit, shrinking in the corner and not daring to move at all. Although he was a believer of the evil god and had killed many people, he was only one person after all. He had never seen such a monster before, especially at a very close distance. At this time, he was so scared that he dared not move. Seeing that he was staying in there relatively peacefully, he simply ignored him. After all, he was immortal, which was more useful. So he threw some food indirectly. The other two guys did not need to be timed at all, so this thing would basically only be the rations of Fiden alone. At this time, Gyokyo found that his little frog had returned without knowing when, hiding in the interlayer of his clothes. The places where this little guy had been hiding recently were becoming more and more magical. Sometimes he had even returned without him knowing. When he came back this time, he immediately checked what the little guy had brought him this time. When he opened it, a prompt sound suddenly came from the system. Your awesome little frog has returned and brought back the skill 6 treasury immortal thief for you. Do you want to accept it? Accept. Since the skill has been brought back, there is no reason not to accept it. Moreover, this skill is somewhat beyond his imagination. He did not expect that it would bring back this ability. This thing is also very familiar to him. Although he doesn't know how to use it in specific operations, he will be able to master it slowly after learning it. A burst of golden light acted on his body, and suddenly a little enlightenment came to his mind. He understood how to use the 6 storage immortal thief. It's just that this thing has changed the world after all, so when it is used, it has some additional abilities, and some of the effects of its original use have been reduced. For example, the 6 storage immortal thief could always provide ki for the body before, but there is no such thing as ki in this world, so it can only provide chakra for the host, and it provides chakra continuously, but the speed is fast or slow. You can eat anything, of course, as long as you don't feel sick. Turn your internal organs into a surging machine. As long as you eat it, whether it is steel or alloy, it can all be digested and then turned into nutrients to nourish your body. It can also convert its excess into chakra to provide you with it, so that you can attack. Of course, if you don't eat anything, there is no problem, and you can even refine the ki of heaven and earth for transformation, which means that, even if you don't eat anything, you can live well. And it also has a particularly terrifying skill, which is to beautify and nourish the skin, and even prolong life. You must know that this skill is tantamount to immortality. It can even make people live to 100 or 200 years old easily. Although it is not as exaggerated as cultivating immortals, it is also very tempting for ordinary people. If you can really live to 200 years old, many people are willing to go crazy for it. The closer a person's life is to the end, the more fearful he will be and want to continue living. However, this skill is still different from Tsunede's skill. Her skill can only change her appearance, but cannot change her physiological lifespan or improve the metabolic rate of cells. But the 6 treasury immortal thief can directly delay the attenuation of cell speed, which can be said to be a very buggy skill. It can even absorb to recover from his injuries. That is to say, as long as Takashi wants, maybe he can survive until Kaguya dies and he may not die. But this is just a hypothesis. Who knows if there will be other problems during the operation of the technique. After a break, he planned to go to his shop to take a look. Since he needed to make some new parts this time, if they were not up to standard in the early stage, he would stop it in time, which was the conventional sense of stopping losses in time. His shop was at the outermost edge of Konoha village, so he had to go to a place near the gates to get there. When he just walked there, he found several uninvited guests standing outside the door, with a hint of anger on their faces, and the head emblem of the Hidden Mist village on their foreheads. Takashi was stunned. What did these guys do to come to the animal husbandry? Then he remembered what happened before, and it was estimated that the other party was probably here because of that thing. Because of some things that happened when he was in the Land clan before, the 6-tailed Jinchuriki and Geo were unconscious, and they were chased in a hurry, so there was no way to bring him back to the village directly. And now that guy has not woken up after such a long time. This injury, coupled with the mental pressure, is likely to cause him great harm. so the brain directly activated the defense mode and encountered countless betrayals. Now he probably doesn't want to wake up because the world is too unfriendly to people like him. If it were according to the previous situation, since the other party had already come, Konoha would definitely return the six-tailed Jinchuriki directly. But now the situation is a little different because of such a weird thing. Yu-Gi-Oh was actually hunted down. I don't know what will happen next. It's just that these are not under Takashi's jurisdiction for the time being, but when he passed by, he found that the people of the Hidden Mist village were actually staring at him. Not only that, their eyes were full of hostility, which can be said to be very unfriendly. He was puzzled and stared back without hesitation. I thought to myself, I provoke you, and you look at me like this for no reason. Besides, this is my territory, and it's your turn to show off to me here. If I can let you scare me here, my time here will be in vain. Not only that, he also exudes the powerful momentum of the tailed beast wrapped in the illusion of evil spirits. Those guys were instantly frightened. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. What can happen if I don't give it to you? Gaokao curled his lips in disdain. They dared to come out and scare people with such courage. They should go back and practice for 2 more years before they come out and embarrass themselves. Gaokao didn't care about them and walked directly towards their target. Gaozati saw their situation and was a little unfriendly. Although he was a little curious, he didn't want to ask more questions. When he knew that the other party was looking for the third Hokage, he just informed them and let them go. For such things that directly look for the Hokage, it is basically a big deal and there won't be too many problems. After Gaokao came to his blacksmith shop, he found that there was no problem with their forging. It was just that the polishing in some places was not too fine, but it did not affect the installation and use. After seeing this, he was a little relieved and said that this was really the spirit of craftsmanship. Even if he was not watching, he would complete the work well. So he was relieved to hand it over to them. He also gave some instructions on some wrong places so that they could complete it better. After a simple look around, he planned to leave and see if there were any tasks suitable for completion at this stage. After all, he was used to going out now. It was a bit uncomfortable for him to stay at home all the time. As a result, he had just walked out a short distance when he found Kakashi rushing towards him. Takashi asked in some confusion, "Teacher Kakashi, what's the hurry?" Kakashi was silent and glanced at him. "I don't know either, but when I accepted the mission, the third Hokage asked me to call you over." Takashi knew that it was most likely those guys from the Hidden Mist village who wanted to call him over. He did not show up when the Jinchuriki was attacked that day. He completely hid his identity, and the one chasing him was only Uchiha Obito. No matter how suspicious he was, he could not be suspected of him. But now is not the time to think about these things. Since he has been called, there must be something urgent. In a few minutes, the two of them have arrived at the Hokage's office. However, Takashi did not go in, but stood in the hall outside the door and said something. He has not changed this habit of saying nice things. At this time, Kakashi on the side coughed lightly. It meant to tell him that there were people watching around him, so he should not use such despicable means. Only then did he realize that there were other people around him, so he simply went in openly. After entering, he found that it was not only him who was caught, but also other senior ninjas, and all the ninjas from the Hidden Mist village were here, but their faces were full of anger, as if they had a grudge that could not be resolved. He thought that your village had such a problem, and we helped you clean up your mess, but you still showed such an expression. Isn't it obvious that you think we are the ones who have caused more trouble? Good intentions are not rewarded. Their situation aroused the suspicion of the third Hokage even more. He was also a cunning guy. In this case, he must get to the bottom of the matter. After all, it was related to the Jinchuriki, and this matter must not be sloppy. If other follow-up things happened because of this matter, he would definitely be blamed. So this matter must be considered carefully. At the same time, another person suddenly came in from outside the door, leaning on a cane, and wearing a green hat. It was Danzo. After hearing about this, he hurried over. Although he had no direct power to increase the strength of the wood industry, as the leader of the root, he still had some say. At the same time, he was also afraid that the third Hokage might give in and let him go. Now, in his opinion, since the 6th Jinchuriki had already arrived at Konoha village and were rescued by them, they were theirs, and there were many suspicious points in this matter. If they caught them and refused to let them go, the other party would have no way to deal with them. Even if the latter woke up, they would be imprisoned. Although the means were somewhat despicable and shameless in such a chaotic era, as long as it could improve the strength, there were many more despicable and shameless things, but they were not exposed to the sun. But at this time, the ninjas of the Hidden Mist village saw that more and more people from Konoha were gathering outside, and an impatient look appeared on their faces. You have so many people, are you trying to threaten us, or do you, Konoha village, want to go to war with us again, just for one person's strength? However, the third Hokage had his own explanation for this matter. The head of our village is also involved in this matter. He said that there are some problems in it. He even met the senior ninja in your village, King, and it is possible that he planned it. How should you explain this to us? Can I understand that your village wants to do some secrets that cannot be told? If you don't communicate this issue to the public, we have the right to refuse. When the people heard him say this, they were immediately angry. Nonsense, how could our village have other intentions? I think this is your silk stockings, in order to delay time and not return the Jinchuriki to us. And there are naturally many different opinions on this issue. Until the end, the third generation Hokage pondered for a while and said slowly, then boss, you go out and wait for a while, and we will discuss it with the top leaders of Konoha. This matter is called a discussion, but in fact it is just a few old guys mixing together, and it has nothing to do with the rest of them. They came here just to strengthen their momentum. When that guy went out, Danzo immediately spoke first. You must not let that guy out. He belongs to our village now. Even if you imprison him, you cannot let him out. Faced with such words, the third Hokage frowned. This was too overbearing. Besides, he was still the Hokage now, so it was not his turn to show off here. However, he just nodded lightly and did not speak. Instead, he looked at the others. Do you have any other opinions? The others were not fools. At this moment of power game, it was better for them not to speak. But at this time, the third Hokage looked at Takashi, who was hiding in the corner. After drinking the potion, Takashi was still very strong. Even if he tried his best to hide in the depths of the crowd, he could not hide at all. He was favored by the third Hokage at first sight. This kid was young and did not participate in the power struggle. He should have some ideas. Then the third Hokage looked over, and Takashi felt something was wrong and wanted to open the door and leave immediately. But he never expected that the 3 people from the Hidden Mist village were already standing outside the door. When they saw Takashi coming out, they thought they had finished their discussion and immediately said aggressively, "What did you guys agree on? Are you still not going to pay it back?" As soon as he opened the door, he swallowed a mouthful of medicine, which made him very bad-tempered. He pointed at the back in a crazy way. Then he said in the coolest tone, "What else can I do?" Chapter 97, Parting on Bad Terms. As soon as he said this, the 2 people from the Hidden Mist village outside were obviously stunned. Then they became furious and pointed at him angrily. "What did you say? Try saying it again." Takashi heard them like this, and they were still so angry in their own territory. Besides, behind him were the top leaders of Konoha and the Hokage. "You 2 outsiders actually dared to yell at me here, aren't you courting death? If you want to hear it, don't just say it once, I'll say it 100 times. This made everyone else stunned. They didn't expect Takashi to say such a thing. The third Hokage was even more stunned after hearing it. This kid just talked, why did he point at himself? And this gesture was obviously noticed by the 2 guys from the Hidden Mist village outside the door. They looked at him fiercely. Is this the way you do things in Konoha village? Or are all these things indicated by your top leaders? The words were naturally said by the third Hokage sitting in the seat inside. In their opinion, the third Hokage had the highest official position here. Except for him, The decisions made by others would never make Takashi make such a decision. So they subconsciously focused their rise and anger on the third Hokage. Danzo, who was standing by, was also happy when he saw this situation. It would be best if the matter could be resolved without him having to step in. In short, the Six Tails Jinchuriki must not be allowed to leave their village. After hearing their tone, the third Hokage was also a little angry. Even if you, the Mizukage, come here, you have to be polite to me. Who do you two think you are? After all, I saved the people in your village. With this attitude, you still want to ask for people. Isn't this a daydream? However, of course, such words cannot be said very directly, but they are said in a pretentious manner. For the safety of our two villages, if you can't say that I can produce strong evidence, I really can't let the Six Tails Jinchuriki return. You have to believe me. This is also an important responsibility for the peace of the two villages. This sounds good, and it is a responsibility. To take peace as one's own responsibility, but to put it bluntly, it is just cheating. How could others not hear it? The two people from the Hidden Mist village stared at each other with anger, and they were about to spit fire. They wanted to swear, but they didn't dare to say it in other people's territory, so they had to look each other in the eye and say something harsh. You must be responsible for your actions today. Then they left angrily. They must report to the Mizukage and tell them how arrogant these guys are. However, this matter is very much in line with Takashi's mind, because there are many doubts about this matter. The AO he saw at that time was completely helping Uchiha Obito to implement his evil plan. This was something he didn't expect. As a guy who was very trusted by the Mizukage and had relatively strong strength, he could actually do such a thing. Who knows how many other spies there are in the village? To put it in a bigger way, it is even possible that the Mizukage may have bad intentions. If they let them take the tailed beast away, it is very likely to cause greater trouble. As for the two villages going to war, because of this matter is even more ridiculous. It seems that, if someone takes the tailed beast away, they will not fight you. In short, there is a possibility of war, so we can't send supplies to them. After seeing the two of them leave, the third Hokage also sighed. He didn't understand why Takashi behaved just now, but at least he was called over, and his identity was tacitly acknowledged. Naturally, people of Konoha cannot be bullied by others, but this matter is indeed of great importance. The eyes of others looking at Takashi were even more strange. Even Danzo was like this, but since his goal had been achieved, he would not stay here for more. He said hello and went out alone. Naturally, the others were busy with their own things after seeing that the matter was over. Only Takashi was here and did not move, because he had to give a reasonable explanation to the third Hokage, otherwise his behavior of being spoiled would soon come to an end. After seeing that everyone else had gone out, Takashi closed the door very discerningly and then saw that there was no one around, and then he said with relief, "Sir Hokage, do you think what I said just now was a bit reckless?" The third Hokage nodded in agreement, then pondered for a moment and said another sentence. "But I think you must have found something suspicious to do this, right?" "Yes, the last time I went out to deal with a mission with Tsunade, I accidentally absorbed a lot of the Three Tails chakra, so there were some traces of the tailed beasts on my body. When I was close to Yu-Gi-Oh, I could feel the six-tailed tail in his body. Although he fell into a deep sleep, the tailed beasts did not. I heard some very suspicious things from it, and even the people who attacked the Jinchuriki were actually from the Hidden Mist village, and there was no other reason. I have reason to believe that there are some inexplicable forms in their village now. So for the time being, the Jinchuriki must not be returned to them." When carrying out the mission last time, Takashi did not say that he became the Three Tails Jinchuriki and could control the tailed beasts, but just said that he didn't know what happened and suddenly absorbed a lot of the tailed beasts Jinchuriki and then made the tailed beasts disappear without a trace, and this explanation was naturally believed by others. Although it was a bit outrageous, other people seemed to be silent when it happened to him. And the most important thing is that the tailed beast disappeared suddenly without a trace. In addition to the lack of chakra, it is hard to believe that someone became a Jinchuriki and sealed it in the body. You have to know that in order to seal the Nine Tails, the fourth Hokage paid the price of his life. If others knew that Takashi's seal did not cost anything, They would probably be so angry that they vomited blood. The third Hokage was obviously the first time to hear that he could actually communicate with the tailed beast. He was a little surprised, especially when he heard that the person who attacked the Jinchuriki was actually someone from the Hidden Mist, which made him even more restless. He asked in surprise, "Is everything you said true?" Takashi nodded very seriously. "What I said is absolutely true, and it's not wrong at all. Their village must have some secrets that we don't know about, and they may even be planning to threaten the ninja world." Takashi had to put a big hat on them. If he investigated these things, it would definitely be very profitable, but if he reported this matter, others could conduct a more comprehensive investigation, which would also save him a lot of effort. It was a matter of killing two birds with one stone. When the third Hokage heard this, his heart sank. It seemed that the ninja world was indeed going to change. Chapter 98, Meeting? No time. The two guys from the Hidden Mist village were furious all the way back. They were all indignant about the overbearing behavior of the Leaf village. When they returned to the village, they met King directly. When he saw that only the two of them came back, and they didn't bring the person they wanted, he frowned. "What happened? Why didn't you Geo come back?" The two told them everything they had encountered before. The Mizukage was very busy, so some things were directly handled by King, and this matter naturally fell on his shoulders. Changjiro was learning about personal protection and other matters. After hearing these words, King suddenly had a very bad premonition, and said to them, "Okay, you don't have to worry about this matter. I will report to the Mizukage." After the two left, King had a sad look on his face, and then walked in another direction. On the other side of the Hidden Cloud village, the Raikage was furious when he heard the news that his brother had been kidnapped. He was very angry and used a knife to smash his desk to pieces. He shouted angrily, Wait for me. Big brother will definitely rescue you. I will definitely tear those people from Akatsuki into pieces." Mabu beside him pushed his glasses calmly. "Please calm down, Lord Raikage. Such rage will not solve the problem, but will give others an opportunity to take advantage of it." After someone reminded him like this, he calmed down a little. His eyes were full of hatred and anger, and he was determined to tear the people who kidnapped his brother into pieces. Although the two of them were not real brothers, their feelings were even deeper. This was an important person that every Raikage had. He had previously suspected that his brother had been imprisoned for too long, so he wanted to go out and take a look and use some tricks to deceive him. But when he went to investigate, he found that it was not the case at all. The traces of the battle that took place in that place were extremely tragic, and there was no trace that could deceive him at all. Not only that, even the tailed beast could not be transformed. It must have been taken away by some people who were far more powerful than him, or the other party used some despicable means. Thinking of this, he became even more furious, because if the tailed beast was pulled out of the body, the Jinchuriki would die on the spot. He was very angry when the two-tailed Jinchuriki was captured before, but that person was not Killer Bee. Although it also caused them a lot of losses, it was barely acceptable. But the person who left at this moment was his most important person, and he must not give up. Although the Raikage looked like a rough man, he was a rough man with a play, and he was extremely furious. He did not completely lose his mind, but his eyes were full of determination. It is absolutely impossible to search like this without thinking. After all, other villages also have corresponding Jinchuriki. It is better to unite them all to fight the enemy together. In this way, not only can he find his brother, but he can also connect the feelings between allies and villages. Thinking of this, he hurriedly said, "You should quickly notify the major ninja villages now, and say that the Hidden Cloud village wants to discuss important matters with them, and it is related to the safety of the tailed beast Jinchuriki in the ninja world." Upon hearing this, Mabuai did not dare to stay any longer, and hurried out to implement this matter. When he went out, the Raikage gave special instructions. Even the Iron Country must be notified. Although they have no ninjas and are a neutral country, their strength should not be underestimated. If possible, it would be best to hold the conference there. The Raikage also had his own thoughts. If the base was set here, and they were counterattacked by Akatsuki, their village would be the one that would be hit hard. Although this idea was a bit mean, as a superior, some things had to be considered more. This time, they notified not only the other major villages, but also Kaguya village. After all, there was also a Jinkriki in their village, and there was no news of him being arrested. He should still be in the village. Now facing a big enemy, they should fight together. Although their village is not big, the strength of the ninja is very high. The Raikage was waiting for news in the village. He believed that other villages would never remain indifferent in the face of these big enemies. After all, his family affection could be their future. But he never expected that there would be an accident. The first to get the news of wealth was the Iron Country, because the Iron Country bordered the other major countries and belonged to the neutral zone. However, the news that came was not good news, but the people of the Iron Country refused without even the slightest hesitation. When the Raikage learned about this, he was also very puzzled and asked Mabu, "What's going on? Although they are a neutral country, they are also a very righteous force. How could they ignore the crisis now? This is incredible." Mabu said angrily. "That's right. I thought so at the time. When he rejected me outright, I even thought I had heard it wrong." The Raikage continued to ask, "Is there no possibility at all?" "Yes, the man named Mifune has no desire to cooperate with us at all. He is even very determined. When we just said it, we were rejected." The reason for the rejection is also very interesting. It turned out that the daimyo of their country refused to cooperate with any village. To be precise, no joint meeting is allowed in their country. The Raikage frowned tightly. He could faintly smell a scent of conspiracy, but he didn't know where it came from. However, since things were like this, he had no choice but to put his hope on other villages. But not long after, bad news came one after another. The Hidden Mist village could not attend the meeting for the time being. The Hidden Leaf village could not attend the meeting for the time being. This news was undoubtedly very bad. Several of the 5 major ninja villages could not come, so there was not much meaning in holding this meeting. The remaining Hidden Rock village did not have any constructive opinions, and that Tsuchikage was an old man, and his form was very conservative. The more the Raikage thought about it, the more headache he had. After thinking for a long time, he could not come up with a good solution. In the end, he was really anxious and said angrily, "Since they don't want to unite, it's no wonder that we crossed the line. We sent people to conduct a carpet search and conduct a comprehensive investigation of the traces left behind. No matter what, I must find Killer B." After hearing this, Mabuai was shocked. "Lord Raikage, if we do this, I'm afraid it will cause public outrage." The Raikage glanced away. "I can't care less." Chapter 99, The Violent Cloud Village. At this time, Deru was also in the house. Hearing this, he also frowned, because this matter was too serious. If a comprehensive search was conducted, it would mean that their ninjas would most likely have to break through the national border and search in other countries. If so, it would be entirely possible that other countries would regard it as an invasion and then expel or even attack it by force. Although he was not the Raikage, he had to consider these things. After all, this was their common village, and as his subordinates, they also had the obligation to remind the Raikage. "Lord Raikage, I don't think this is appropriate. Don't say anything more. I've decided. Since no one is willing to cooperate, then everyone will just break the jar." There was no way to deal with the attitude of his boss. Although he usually hated troublesome things, he still cared about the village. However, since Lei Ren had already said these words, there was no point in objecting. He might even have an unpleasant dispute with Lord Raikage, and that was not what he wanted to see, so it was better to just execute it directly. Without saying anything, he went out directly and planned to send people to investigate. The Hidden Cloud village also has a lot of Anbu, guarding the entire village in the dark and protecting their safety. Then Rui personally led a group of Anbu to the Iron Country. Because the Raikage felt that there was something strange about this place, why did they refuse so decisively? This kind of thing made him a little difficult to understand, but since he couldn't understand it, he simply didn't understand it. Since the opinion of both parties to unite together was rejected, then each of them would take care of their own business. And there was also some anger in it, because the Iron Country covers a large area, and it is even one of the best among the major countries. Such a large country, with strong strength, actually doesn't want to make any contribution to the ninja world. This behavior made him, as the Raikage, despise him. The reason he could think of was nothing but fear. There is absolutely nothing wrong with paying too much attention to one's own strength, but if they don't take action, when it comes to such a matter of great justice, then don't blame them for taking action. However, since he is the Raikage, of course he knows that there may be friction, and he wants to put pressure on the major countries, so that they can surge. After all, no one wants to have another ninja world war. The casualties are too great, and they don't want to continue to bear this kind of pressure. So they chose the Iron Country directly for their first battle, and the reason for choosing them is also a bit of picking the weak specimen. Because everyone knows that this country only has some old-fashioned samurai, and these samurai are very despised in front of the general ninja. Even in the cultivation world, there is a contempt chain, and samurai are at the bottom of the contempt chain of many ninjas, because many of their techniques cannot be compared with ninjas, and even in battle, they can only rush around without too many skills. Deru led a group of people to search in the territory of the Iron Country. There is a guarding force on the border of the Iron Country. This force is relatively a very elite force in the Iron Country. Although it cannot be called an ace, it is much stronger than the average. After all, this is around the border. If you don't send out a good team, it will be easily looked down upon by others. Deru has not left the Hidden Cloud Village for a long time, mainly because he has been practicing all the time, and he is too lazy to do other boring things. But when he came here, he suddenly found that those samurai who were old-fashioned in his impression had changed their weapons. This was probably surprising to him. In his impression, the Bushido that these guys adhered to was old-fashioned, and there was no belief that could be shaken at all. But at this moment they actually changed their weapons. There was no samurai sword that was always on his waist. Instead, he carried a strange weapon with a bayonet on his shoulder. He had never seen such a thing before. Of course, he would never have thought that such a thing could be used for long-range shooting, or even for precise aiming. If more than a dozen people fired in tandem, even if more than a dozen people were ordinary people, they could shoot and kill a Jonin in an instant. This was already a very terrifying lethality. Fire Kirin number 1 has now been put under martial law by the Iron Country. Except for some small countries and regions with very good relations, other places have no knowledge of it at all. As for selling it, it is even more impossible. Once any smuggling and selling behavior is discovered, the Iron Country will kill it at all costs. It is even more impossible for Takashi to cut off this money road for no reason. It is not easy to form such a big order with the Iron Country. If he makes friends with other countries, the route of the Iron Country will be completely cut off. The ninja world is very selfish and will not let you make money from both ends so easily. If you encounter an irritable one, it is very likely to use military means to forcibly retain it. Force it to produce Fire Kirin number 1 for them. These principles are naturally understood by the efficient, so it is impossible to do such a stupid thing. Deru and his team had just crossed the border, and several black shadows flashed in the sky. The patrol soldiers below noticed it at once, but Deru and his team didn't care much about it. Even if they reported it, they would have left without a trace. So they didn't take it seriously at all, and moved quickly between the woods, expecting that the people below had no long-range attack methods, so they could only chase them mindlessly below. But he never expected that a beam of light would come at him the next moment. Deru had a very dangerous premonition in his heart. This was the danger foresight he had developed in battles for many years. His hair was actually burned by the light. He was shocked. What was this? He looked down and saw that it was a few soldiers from the Iron Country. They were holding the Fire Kirin number 1 scope in their hands and had already pointed it at them. At the same time, they issued a very severe warning. I don't care who you are. Come down and surrender now, otherwise we will indiscriminately shoot and kill you. Deru was also angry at the dangerous attack just now. He didn't care about their plan to rush into the territory of the Iron Country. But how could a soldier guarding the border agree to such a thing? They directly carried out indiscriminate continuous shooting, but they were just a small team of only 10 people. Deru's team also had nearly 10 people. With the increase and decrease of 1, it would seem that the firepower density of Fire Kirin number 1 was insufficient. Even so, several people were injured in the crowd, which surprised Deru. Even if he couldn't find the guys who took Kirabi away, it would be a great achievement to get this information. Chapter 100 Friction between the two sides. This weapon shocked him so much because he could clearly feel the strength of the people below, who were completely ordinary people. There was no Madara Uchiha from years of fighting on the battlefield, and even such people could cause great trouble to them with this weapon. The most important thing was that this was just a small team of 10 people. What if it was a large team of hundreds or thousands of people? If they were all equipped with such weapons, they would cover them with a firepower net. This situation was simply unimaginable to him. Even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, he could not survive in such a dense firepower net. He clearly saw that after a ray of light came, the branches as thick as 2 bowls were instantly shot through and burned. If this hit his body, it would directly penetrate, without leaving any mercy at all. Moreover, after years of fighting on the battlefield, he knew that this thing was the same as being blown up by a detonating talisman, and his body would be burned after being blown up. Even using medical ninjas for treatment would be very troublesome. I didn't expect that the country of TZ could actually develop such a weapon. It seems that I really have to be careful. No wonder they were so confident that they rejected our invitation directly. It seems that they were not bluffing. This time, I must not simply withdraw. I must find out the source of this weapon, go back and tell Lord Drakeage, and then let ninjas also equip a batch of such weapons. Then we will see who dares to compete with us. With this idea, he felt that he was full of motivation, and led the Enbu behind him to sprint into the territory of the Iron Country more fiercely. At this time, because they ran too fast, they did not notice that a member of the Enbu fell behind. The patrol members of the Iron Country had no mercy. When they saw someone falling behind, they immediately locked their firepower and attacked the person who fell behind with all their strength. After aiming, one contestant used the blind spot of the fire Kirin to lock and shot the guy in the calf. He screamed in pain and fell directly from the running tree. However, before he fell to the ground completely, he was shot into a sieve by several other members of the Iron Country using the fire Kirin #1 in midair. He lost his life without even a cry of surprise. Deru was even more surprised at this time. You know, the people in their Anbu are at least the strength of Jonin, and they are all experienced players. It was just a mistake that caught them and killed them. What a joke. Their elite ninja was killed by a dozen ordinary soldiers. If this kind of thing were to be told, I'm afraid others would laugh their heads off. Can the efforts of more than 10 or even 20 years be so vulnerable? But they would not have thought that their decades of efforts could not match the condensation of wisdom and power of these hundreds of years. This shot contains not only the energy rays released by chakra, but also the crystallization of countless technologies and the huge energy generated by Stark Industries. It is not shameful to lose to the technology of hundreds or thousands of years in the future. If Takashi saw this scene, he would probably be very pleased that his weapon could exert such power. The people below did not give up their pursuit, but became more fierce. Seeing that someone on the other side was killed by them, they looked at the fire Kirin #1 in their hands and wanted to kiss it twice. All along, as samurai, they were looked down upon by ninjas from other villages because they could not stand long-range attacks. Even if they were invaded by others, sometimes they could only stare at them and watch them leave. After all, they were just ordinary soldiers. But now it is different. With this thing, who dares to be so arrogant in front of them? The two sides have been chasing for a long time. In fact, Deru also thought about counter-attacking and killing a team of more than 10 people. For them, even if they were discovered, it was not an unforgivable crime. At most, they would be scolded. However, he himself is not a bloodthirsty person. His purpose of coming here is just to gather intelligence. Killing people is not in line with their intentions, and it is easy to cause confrontation between the two great powers. But the main reason is that the vitality net below the other side is too fierce. If they force it down and kill it, they will not say that someone will die, but at least half of them will be injured. If the damage of the other side's corrosive weapons hits them, it will cause very irreparable damage to the next action. He dared not gamble on such a thing. He was the leader and had to ensure the smooth completion of the mission. Every decision would affect the subsequent strategy. So there was no other way but to let everyone continue to move forward, to minimize the number of injured people, and then throw some Kunai shurikens below. to block the speed of others. Although these methods seemed a bit stupid, they were indeed very useful. However, in the end, they still paid the price of 1 death and 3 injuries. Not to mention others. Even Deru felt very aggrieved at the moment. He had fought on the battlefield for so many years, and except for the wreckage, he had never obeyed anyone. He did not expect that this time he would be beaten into this state by a team of soldiers who were nothing. One hand fell fiercely towards the tree next to him, knocking the leaves off one after another. Damn it. We were too careless and didn't expect that they had already upgraded their weapons to this level. And didn't Mabu come last time? Why didn't we report such an important matter? We almost suffered heavy losses, but even now it's enough for us. He looked at the injured ninjas and found that the wounds had been burned brown and there was no way to heal automatically. If the situation continues to develop like this, it will inevitably become inflamed. In this world without penicillin, we can only rely on the metaphysics of medical ninjas for treatment. If it becomes inflamed, the mortality rate can be as high as 80% or even 90%. Faced with this situation, they dare not gamble. The forests here are very lush, and there are often many herbs here. As ninjas who often perform missions, they are very knowledgeable about some herbs for healing and stopping bleeding. As for these wounds that have long been burned into cooked flesh, there is no other way except to cut them off on the spot. Fortunately, these injuries are not on the legs, but all on the arms or shoulders. Seeing his men cutting off the rotten flesh and the painful expressions on their faces, Deru felt bad, always feeling that it was because of his stupidity that caused this situation. However, for the future development of the village, they had to persevere despite the pain. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.